I'm divorcing my husband after he invited his ex for dinner and humiliated me. Now, everyone's saying I'm wrong for wanting out. We have a 4-year-old boy together, and Tom and I have been married for 5 years. He was an undergraduate and I was completing my master's degree when we first met in graduate school. I quit my job after getting married, but I had to go back to work when our baby was 6 months old since Tom's salary wasn't enough to support the 3 of us. Many arguments resulted from that choice since Tom believed it was disrespectful to him in some way and demonstrated my lack of confidence in his skills. I tried to persuade him for weeks that this was not related to his ability and that, in my opinion, 2 salaries would be preferable to 1. After he learned he could take some time off work to spend with our son, he finally warmed up to me after being angry with me for a long. The drawback was that I ended up doing all of the housework in addition to my job. Tom says his job is more physically demanding than mine because he works as a personal trainer at a nearby gym. He believes that since I work from a desk, I should take care of the majority of the housework. Despite working longer hours, he said, home chores shouldn't be too taxing for me because I don't perform much physical activity at work. We had agreed when I first started working that he would assist with at least some duties, but every time I returned home, the job was only partially completed. He often claimed to be too tired as an excuse. We would argue about it all the time until I finally gave up on trying to get him to do his share. To prevent the frequent conflicts, I started taking care of everything myself. I started smoking because I was so stressed out. Tom also made fun of me for this, claiming that I was merely attempting to flaunt my level of stress. In addition to enduring Tom's constant criticism of my poor cooking, which was mostly his fault because he never assisted with meal preparation and I had to juggle everything between work and other responsibilities, I had been living like this for the past few years. Knowing that leaving would have an effect on our son's life, I stayed solely for his sake. I finally gave up and hired a maid last year, covering her money out of pocket. Tom continued to make fun of me because he believed it was a reflection of my poor housekeeping abilities. He was often contrasting me with his mother, his aunts, and other women he knew who had no trouble juggling work and home. He would simply laugh it off and tell me to calm down because it was only a joke, even though I would counter that these women most likely had supporting husbands. I would be much more enraged by that. We would occasionally have fun together, but the times he would irritate me were what I remembered, and I had been thinking about getting a divorce for a while. When Tom brought his ex-girlfriend Lucy, 28F, home for supper last week, I finally lost it. His high school girlfriend Lucy and he dated for nearly 6 years before splitting up because they were attending different universities. The first time he saw her was at the grocery store. She had just moved into our area and had asked her over for supper without even asking me. Even after our marriage, Tom's friends would frequently bring her up and make fun of him for it, so I knew these two were quite the item in high school. However, that didn't prepare me for his overly pleasant and flirtatious behavior during dinner. He was clearly attempting to irritate me, and it was succeeding. That was the second strike. Then the third strike. He began making jokes about what a messy housewife I would be and how fortunate I was to have my career as a justification. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain to any of my guests why I'm such a bad cook. Because Lucy is a stay-at-home mother of 2 girls, he continued making jokes about how much better she was at everything than I was. He joked that I would never be caught doing anything like that after telling me that Lucy was actually at the grocery store purchasing ingredients for a French dish she intended to prepare for her husband. It made them both laugh a lot. He also mentioned my smoking, claiming that I was only trying to flaunt my stress levels, much like Lucy, who was flawless at everything. I was fighting back tears by that point, but I chose to smile through it all because I didn't want Lucy to get the pleasure of seeing me cry. I decided to leave after serving them ice cream for dessert because it was an embarrassing experience. I waited until Tom went to bed that evening. This wasn't odd because I typically clean the dishes at night and don't go to bed until he's sleeping. I packed some clothes and other essentials for our son and myself, booked a cab, and went to my parents' place as soon as he started snoring. By the time I arrived, it was almost midnight. I started crying as soon as my mother opened the door and I attempted to explain. My youngster, who was irritable and perplexed, started crying as a result. Since I wasn't sure whether Tom could take good care of him while I was away and I didn't want to leave him to find out, I had to bring him along. Without asking, my parents took us in, and when they put my son to bed, I was at last able to collect myself and tell them everything. Tom called me in a hurry the following morning to find out where I was. The worry in his voice vanished and he burst out laughing when I told him the truth and announced that I was going to file for divorce. He advised me to just come home and stop the turmoil. I became so enraged by that I began ranting at him, accusing him of being a misogynistic, lazy, selfish, and inept man. He finally appeared to get that I was serious when I told him that I would rather be single for the rest of my life than return to him. He began arguing with me on the phone, accusing me of exaggerating and making a huge fuss out of nothing, rather than offering an apology. He asserted that there was no need to take things personally and that his jokes were merely an attempt to lighten the atmosphere around Lucy. The problem is that his jokes weren't hilarious. They were nasty and cruel, especially considering that I was already making every effort. Every day he simply continued to test my limits. He began acting like the victim when he realized that this was more than just a joke, saying that I had been plotting my departure for some time and that this was the final straw. Currently, all of our friends are texting me to tell me that I should prioritize our family over myself and not allow a few dumb jokes to ruin our marriage. Everyone keeps saying that I shouldn't ruin a home over some jokes, even though I've attempted to explain that there are a lot of things they don't know. Some people seem to feel more at ease when I posted an explanation of all I had previously discussed. Tom also noticed it and remarked that I should have notified him if these were my issues, and he would have taken care of it. I've been telling him these things for years, but it hasn't changed, so it's absurd. I just finished, and it felt like I was speaking to a wall. But following that post, he began to insist that he only needed one final shot to make it work and that he would change and get better. He convinced some of our acquaintances to try to convince me to stay by telling me that he would undoubtedly improve and make a fantastic spouse. However, it irritates me that he continually bringing up our pals. He seems to be using a deceptive and immature strategy, peer pressure, to try to talk me out of pursuing a divorce. Over the past few years, I've given him numerous opportunities to get better, but he's never done so I don't think he's capable of changing anymore. Even if I stayed right now, I'm confident that he would attempt to make a sincere effort for a few months before reverting to his previous conduct. I'm tired of being a single mother even though I have a spouse, and I'm not getting any younger. He's hardly the ideal role model for our son, aside from anything else. I most certainly do not want my son to grow up in a home where Tom's kind of behavior is accepted. For the sake of my son, I stayed with him for a very long time, and now I'm leaving him for the same reason. I filed for divorce 2 days ago, and he was served today. He is upset primarily because he never wanted a divorce in the first place, and because I have asked to keep the house where we lived and filed for full custody of our son, or sell it and divide the proceeds 60-40, with me receiving the larger portion. Since both of our parents gave us the house as a wedding present, I believe it is only just that I keep it or that we divide the proceeds from its sale. Because of all the labor and effort I've put in over the past few years, working full-time, raising my son, and handling all home chores without his assistance, I feel that I should be given the greater part. I believe the petition is quite reasonable because I'm not even asking for alimony. Even though I want a divorce, Tom claims I'm being unfair and that I shouldn't have asked for full custody because our son is equally his and mine. Which is reasonable, but I don't believe he's capable of being a father. He may still visit and see his son whenever he wants to. I haven't attempted to take away his visiting privileges. He simply does not have him on a full-time basis. After I was served, he called and said I was being crazy and that this was a terrible overreaction. He claimed that since I was requesting full custody in the house, he already didn't agree with the divorce and had good reason to think I was being irrational. It was really embarrassing when he broke down in tears on the other end when I stated that I had thought a lot about it and that it hadn't been easy for me either. It's very clear from everything I've written that Tom isn't a particularly emotional person, so his breakdown is a huge issue. He was crying and told me, very dramatically, that he had taken everything for granted because he never thought he could bear to lose me one day. He pleaded with me to give him one final opportunity to demonstrate his ability to be a wonderful father and husband. I had to let him know that my decision was definite and that he had come to the realization a bit too late, even though it was really difficult for me to do so. I couldn't simply return to the life. It was strange and uncomfortable for me to have to stay on the phone and try to comfort him for the following several minutes as he began to cry even more. He eventually stopped sobbing and declared that if our son suffered as a result, he would never be able to forgive either himself or me. We might renegotiate the terms of his custody in a few years when he's a little older, so I reassured him that this was only a temporary arrangement. I informed him that although this would be difficult for us both, we needed to strive to be strong for our son's sake and make the most of our circumstances. However, he quickly ended the call, and for the next few hours, I didn't hear from anyone. But all of a sudden, our pals have been contacting me once more, telling me that what I'm doing is fundamentally wrong and that I should think twice before acting. They're arguing that rather than being so heartless and self-centered, I should give it some thought since Tom is pleading for one more chance. It was only a handful at first, but now it's almost everyone we know, and I'm beginning to seriously think about changing my mind because I might be the bad guy here. I have no idea anymore. Since my husband doesn't assist me, am I the jerk for requesting a divorce and full custody of our son? Hello, following a very hectic week, I'm back with an update. My lawyer and I have been getting ready for the talks. For the divorce settlement and custody dispute, Tom and I will first meet with the mediator appointed by the court. The actual divorce process doesn't worry me too much, but I'm quite anxious about the custody dispute. Everyone keeps saying that my desire for full custody is absurd, but they don't see the big picture. Our son spends more time with me and always has, so I know he favors me. We all know that's not how kids operate, but Tom has always attempted to build a relationship with our son just on his terms. Observing Tom's abrupt change into a worried father has been one of the most annoying aspects of the previous week. He has been making false claims on social media about how much he misses his son and how unfair it is that he is unable to see him. He hasn't attempted, but he is welcome to come at any time. These posts have been reposted by a number of mutual acquaintances, who have added their own remarks about what a loving parent he is. The truth is very different. Even our son's daily schedule, preferred meals, and allergies are unknown to Tom. He called us only recently to inquire if our youngster still enjoys dinosaur-shaped nuggets. Due to his current space-themed food obsession, our son hasn't had those in more than a year. These minor details cast doubt on his capacity to serve as a main caregiver. Given that I have been actively involved in our son's life while Tom has only occasionally done so, my lawyer believes we have a solid case. Everything from the doctor's visits I've taken our son to, the parent-teacher conferences Tom has missed, and the daily schedule I've kept up while working a full-time job are all being documented. The financial side of things is a complete disaster. Some preliminary documents were sent over by Tom's lawyer, who is disputing my request for the house. They contend that it ought to be divided equally because it was a wedding present from both families. Conveniently, they fail to mention that I have been responsible for all of the upkeep, fixes, and upgrades throughout the years. The incessant barrage of messages from people who hardly understand our predicament is what's truly getting to me. Even some of Tom's gym patrons have contacted me to express their sadness and to tell me what a wonderful man he has always been. They seem to be living in a different universe where having a charming personality at work inevitably translates into being a good spouse and father. My mother-in-law's response has been the most unexpected development. She genuinely phoned me to let me know that she understood my decision, in contrast to the majority of our friends who have sided with Tom. She disclosed that during the early years of their marriage, she and Tom's father experienced similar problems, but she decided to stay and try to resolve them. I could tell how that worked out for her just by the resignation in her voice as she stated those words. All of this has been made possible by the tremendous support of my own parents. When I need to meet with lawyers or take care of paperwork, my mom has been watching our son while my dad helps me manage my financial documents. I've come to appreciate how alone and unsupported I felt in my marriage thanks to their assistance. To be honest, there have been occasions when the tension has been too much to handle. For the first time since I moved out, I found myself reaching for a cigarette last night, but I restrained myself. I came to the realization that my smoking was not a necessity, but rather a result of my marital dissatisfaction. You get clarity in these moments, which is odd. Late at night, Tom has begun texting me lengthy texts that range from tearful pleas to irate accusations. He mentioned in his most recent message that he has been learning how to properly do washing and cooking by viewing tutorials. If it weren't so depressing, it would almost be humorous. At the age of 28, he is only now choosing to develop these fundamental life skills. Screenshots of Tom's private social media posts, in which he offers his perspective, have been sent by several mutual acquaintances. He presents himself as a loving spouse who was taken by surprise by a wife who had never expressed her displeasure. People are accusing me of being cold-hearted and speculating that I may be experiencing a midlife crisis in the comments section. That one made me laugh. It seems like I'm already experiencing a midlife crisis at the age of 35. My lawyer told me not to react to any of these provocations, but to record everything. She claims that when he engages in this type of deceptive behavior in public, it actually helps our cause. It's difficult to avoid feeling under attack from all sides, though. Observing how much more at ease our son has been since we relocated to my parents' place is the one thing that keeps me grounded. He appears to be happier overall and is eating and sleeping better. Naturally, he still inquires about his father, but he isn't as worried about it as he was when we all shared a home and things were tense. Next week is the date of my first mediation session. Even though my lawyer has prepared me for this, I'm still anxious. I'm aware that it will be a challenging process because Tom's attorney has already stated that they intend to vigorously oppose the full custody request. Every day that goes by makes me feel more certain about my choice, even with all the pressure and second guessing from others. I've been reminded of what a supportive home is like by living with my parents. For the first time in years, I'm getting enough sleep, and I'm beginning to recall my former self before I got so caught up in trying to make an impossible scenario work. As we begin the legal proceedings, the upcoming weeks will be critical. After the mediation session, I'll provide another update, but for now, I just wanted to express my gratitude to everyone who helped me with my first post. When I was most doubting myself, your remarks kept me going. Update 2. Tom paid us a visit at my parents' house today. Since my last update, which was a week and a half ago, I must admit that I was terrified of this encounter. This was most likely our final informal meeting before the actual legal process starts, as we have our mediation session in a few days. Given all of his recent passionate text messages, I anticipated this visit to be contentious. But today's events fundamentally altered my viewpoint on a number of issues. Tom was standing there when I answered the door, looking more put together than I had seen him in a long time. In addition to bringing a small gift bag for our son, he was dressed appropriately in a button-down shirt rather than his typical gym clothing. His manner truly caught my attention. None of the defensiveness or animosity I had been bracing myself for was present. Even when we were married, he seldom ever engaged in small chat with my parents. He talked to my dad about some local sports and inquired about my mom's garden. Yes, it was embarrassing, yet oddly polite. This unexpectedly normal conversation lasted for approximately 15 minutes before he asked to see our son. It took me a bit to answer because the way he asked, not demanded, but asked, was already so different from how he usually behaves. When we entered the living room, our son was playing. His whole face brightened when he spotted Tom. "Daddy!" he yelled, dropping his toys and sprinting directly into Tom's embrace. I saw their contact from the doorway. When I brought up our son's new space passion in the custody documents, Tom brought a new puzzle, one with spaceships, demonstrating that he had genuinely listened. Tom led our kid to take the lead in assembling it, something he had never done before, and they sat on the floor together. Typically, he attempted to regulate the activities and became irate when our son did not precisely follow his directions. Hearing Tom inquire about our son's day, his daycare pals, and his favorite aspects of living at Grandma and Grandpa's place truly got to me. He truly listened to our son's meandering responses about the treehouse in the backyard and the neighbor's cat. I had never witnessed him interact with our son in this way in all the years we had been married. At one occasion, our son began to tell Tom about how I prepare rocket-shaped sandwiches for him. Previously, Tom would have made a snarky remark about my culinary abilities, but now he wanted our kid to show him how. Our son took his father's instruction on how to properly assemble a rocket sandwich extremely seriously, and they spent the next 20 minutes in the kitchen. Our son's question about when he may see his father again was the true turning point. I was struck by the hopeful expression on both of their cheeks. Tom didn't try to control the situation or make demands right away. He simply stared at me while he awaited my answer. When it was time for Tom to leave after they had finished playing, our son gave him a big embrace and invited him to return the next day. Tom gave me a curious look, and before I had given it much thought, I found myself nodding. Before Tom went, we had a little conversation at the door. He admitted that he had been a terrible father thus far, without displaying his customary defensiveness. He acknowledged that he realized how much he had missed by not being more involved after witnessing our son's growth and transformation in only these few weeks. Even though he couldn't be a better husband, he assured me he was willing to learn everything he could to become a better father. He said he had been attending parenting classes 3 times a week and had hired a nanny to teach him how to properly care for children. Not to gloat, but to show me that he was serious about this, he displayed the diplomas on his phone. He didn't make any lofty claims about changing or try to get me to return. He simply asked me to reevaluate the complete custody agreement instead. He proposed that we arrange a timetable that would allow him to demonstrate his ability to be a responsible parent without interfering with our son's daily routine. I phoned my lawyer after he departed. The following paragraph is logically separated and punctuated. I informed her that I would be willing to talk about a joint custody agreement and that I no longer wanted to pursue full custody. She brought up all of the records we had collected demonstrating Tom's prior lack of involvement, but I told her that even if he hadn't been a good husband, I needed to give him an opportunity to improve as a father. Our son's expression of unadulterated happiness today made me realize that, even though it's the proper thing to terminate my marriage, I don't have the authority to break off my son's relationship with his father, especially now that Tom is finally demonstrating that he wants to be the father our son deserves. Update 3. Surprisingly, the divorce talks are proceeding considerably more amicably than I had anticipated. Tom and his attorney have been extremely helpful, which I believe is his way of expressing regret for his previous actions. Our son's custody arrangements are still being worked out verbally and informally, but we're thinking that he should spend half of the month at his dad's house and the other half at mine. Actually, we're doing just that at the moment. In a few days, my son will move in with his father. This arrangement first made me nervous, but Tom has really come through for me. To his great relief, he has begged his mother for assistance. She has been more supportive than some of my closest friends, even when our marriage ended. She still gives me a call every day to see how I'm doing and sends me photos of the bedroom she's helping Tom furnish for our boy. Additionally, the house matter has been settled more readily than I had thought. In recognition of the extra effort I had put in over the years, Tom agreed to sell it and divide the revenues 55-45 in my favor. This solution was actually proposed by his attorney, demonstrating their sincere desire to be fair. In addition, Tom has taken a co-parenting course, which was suggested by the mediator but not necessary. Through our new co-parenting app, which allows us to manage appointments, calendars, and our son's activities without having to speak to each other directly, he has been updating me on his progress. The way Tom manages our son's space period has been the most unexpected development. His apartment's spare room has been converted into a miniature planetarium, complete with ceiling-mounted glow-in-the-dark stars. In order to maintain continuity between houses, he asked me for our son's nighttime ritual, which he has been practicing with his mother. Since neither of us believes that a 2-week period without seeing either parent is healthy for our son, I continue to see him every few days while Tom is away. We've arranged for Wednesday supper with whoever doesn't have him that week and alternating weekends. Instead of rehashing our marital problems, the mediation sessions have been fruitful since they have focused on realistic co-parenting techniques. Regarding managing school schedules, healthcare decisions, and holiday plans, Tom has been actively engaging, taking notes, and posing pertinent questions. No more conflict on social media or late-night texts. We've set clear contact boundaries. Our lawyers or the co-parenting app handle everything. In a last update, Tom willingly removed all of his earlier posts regarding our predicament and said that we are resolving the matter in private for the sake of our son. Through all of this, his mother has been an unanticipated blessing. In addition to teaching Tom how to be a parent, she also acts as a mediator between us when tensions arise. She set up a meeting with both sets of grandparents last week so we could have a reasonable conversation about our disagreements over preschool alternatives. In the end, we came up with a solution that satisfied everyone. Our son appears to be adjusting to the new situation rather nicely. Although we're attempting to keep things somewhat consistent by bringing his favorite stuffed animals with him when he moves between homes, he is thrilled to have 2 rooms and 2 sets of toys. Without showing any signs of concern, he stopped asking when we were returning home and instead talked about mommy's and daddy's houses. Our lawyers are taking care of the financial matters expertly. With explicit instructions on how much each of us will pay and how the funds may be utilized, we are creating a joint account especially for our son's costs. Tom proposed this on his own because he wanted to make sure that our financial obligations as co-parents were transparent. We have a thorough parenting plan that addresses everything from medical choices to education. Even instructions on how to manage future relationships have been included, such as meeting any possible new partners before presenting them to our kid. I am aware that there are still obstacles in our way. This is only the start of our co-parenting adventure, and there will surely be setbacks. However, for the first time since it all started, I have genuine hope that we will be able to prioritize our son's needs and cooperate as parents, even if we are unable to cooperate as spouses. The most important thing is that my son is happier than I have seen him in months. Both Tom and I now realize that letting go of the previous hurts is less essential than becoming good co-parents. I'm glad we were able to come to an agreement that prioritizes our son's welfare while still enabling us to have deep connections with him. I appreciate all of your help and guidance during this trip. When I was having self-doubt, your advice kept me going and helped me make choices that would benefit my son and myself. This community has been an amazing source of insight and strength. My sister sabotaged my wedding dress and announced a fake pregnancy at my son's birthday party, but what I uncovered next destroyed our family. I am 35 years old, the youngest of 3 sisters, and here is the tale of how, at my son's first birthday celebration, decades of family strife finally erupted. Let me explain the convoluted history that brought us to this point before delving into the recent events. My oldest sister, Lisa, 40F, and I had a tense relationship while we were growing up in suburban Pennsylvania, but she got along well with our middle sister, Rachel, 38F. Lisa has behaved more like my first bully than a sister since I can remember. She unintentionally shoved me into my cake in front of all my friends at my 5th birthday celebration, spoiling not just my special day but also my favorite dress. I can still clearly recall that moment. Rachel later pulled me away and helped clean me up, establishing a pattern that would last the rest of our lives, even though our parents dismissed it as normal sibling rivalry. As we grew older, the bullying just became worse. Lisa would purposefully humiliate me in front of my peers during my middle school years by calling me derogatory names and spreading untruths about me. When I was 13 and had my first crush, the worst thing happened. For months, Lisa destroyed my social life by telling the boy I liked that I still peed the bed, which was totally incorrect. Rachel attempted to step in, but our parents insisted that we had to resolve our differences on our own because sisters do argue. My adolescence presented new difficulties. I became interested in alternative music and began using darker makeup and clothes to represent who I was. Lisa would make fun of me by calling me Cruella and would bark every time I passed her at school, while Rachel assisted me in trying out various looks. There were also frightening times, such as when she would ambush me from behind close to stairwells, leaving me continually concerned for my safety. While Lisa was preoccupied with being the ideal daughter, joining cheerleading, and dating the quarterback, I found solace in technology and academics. By my senior year of high school, I had already found my passion for computer science and was working as a freelance web developer. This change in our paths appeared to exacerbate Lisa's hostility. I devoted all of my energy to establishing a profession in IT consulting after high school. After earning honors from Penn State, I immediately found work at a prominent Philadelphia consulting business. Lisa, who had opted for a more conventional route, getting married to her high school boyfriend Greg, 41 minutes, immediately after college, and settling into suburban life, seemed especially displeased by my success. My personal life suffered during my 20s while my profession took off. I was getting promoted, developing a reputation in my field, and flying across the nation for projects. Rachel, who was now a high school teacher, continued to be encouraging and would frequently defend my decisions at family get-togethers. Lisa, meantime, would scathingly criticize me for ignoring my family responsibilities and prioritizing my job. At the meal for my 25th birthday, the tension reached a breaking point. Just as I was blowing out my candles, Lisa announced she was expecting her first child. She quickly became the center of attention, and my celebration turned into an unplanned baby shower planning session. Only Rachel caught my stealthy departure from the table and trailed me to the bathroom. Rachel hugged me and said, "She's jealous because you're successful on your own terms," while I tried not to cry. Over the following few years, I kept in touch with Lisa very little and concentrated on developing my job. I was directing significant digital transformation projects at the age of 30 after being promoted to senior consultant. I first met James, 37 meters, at a tech conference in Boston. We bonded over our mutual appreciation of technology and vintage rock while he was presenting on cybersecurity. James actually cared about my profession and encouraged my goals, unlike other dates who had been put off by my career. James proposed over a Cape Cod weekend after a year of dating. I was so happy that I wanted to tell my whole family about it for the first time. Rachel was overjoyed and volunteered to assist with wedding preparations right away. Although my mother kept asking if I was certain I wanted to settle down at this stage of my career, my parents were thrilled. At first, Lisa's response was pleasantly favorable. In an effort to have the ideal wedding day, I spent months organizing it. I discovered my ideal dress, a sophisticated A-line gown with delicate vintage accents and elaborate beading, after saving money from my consulting job. Although the $800 price tag wasn't high by wedding dress standards, it symbolized years of perseverance and self-reliance. 3 months prior to the wedding, the dress incident occurred. The changes had been offered by my Aunt Mary, a skilled seamstress. Lisa claimed she wanted to check on the progress of the changes when she arrived at Aunt Mary's house one afternoon with her 2 huge dogs. Lisa knew her dogs would go into the sewing room, so she purposefully left the door open while Aunt Mary was preparing tea. The ensuing devastation was total. The beautiful lace was destroyed, the bodice was ripped apart, and beads were all over the place. After many unanswered calls, I finally made it to Aunt Mary's house, where I discovered her crying. At first, she tried to place the blame on herself as she described what had transpired, but something didn't match up. Known for her attention to detail, Aunt Mary would never leave a bridal gown exposed. She explained how Lisa had planned the entire incident when I gently pressed her, even pleading with her not to give me the truth. The ensuing altercation was heated. Presumably to talk about wedding plans, I brought our parents and both sisters to my parents' place. When Lisa entered, beaming and thrilled to be a bridesmaid, Rachel realized right once that something was up. Lisa's facade fell apart when I told her what I knew. When she had to wear something off the rack for her own wedding, she went on a tirade about how I always had it easy and how I didn't deserve such a costly dress, instead of expressing regret. At last, the truth was revealed. Lisa acknowledged that she intentionally let her dogs into the room with the knowledge that they would ruin the garment. Despite her husband's prosperous career, she claimed financial difficulties because she was only able to repay $500. When our parents realized for the first time how envious Lisa really was, they were stunned into silence. I immediately revoked her invitation to the wedding. My father, who felt bad about ignoring Lisa's actions for years, helped pay for a different outfit for the wedding. Despite the family drama, Rachel was my maid of honor, and the day was lovely. I ignored Lisa's generic card of congrats. I kept my distance from Lisa for the next few years as I started a new life with James. As I progressed in my career and eventually became a partner in my consulting firm, we purchased a suburban home. We made the decision to start a family when I was 34, and I got pregnant with our son. Being a mother altered me in some way. Perhaps it was the hormones or the newfound perspective that comes with starting a family, but I found myself thinking about making amends with Lisa when my mother proposed it. "You're both mothers now," she'd add, "and family should stick together." Lisa contacted me once again after my son was born, and this time she seemed sincere in her regret. Lisa broke down in tears during our first meaningful chat in years, revealing that she had been working through her problems in treatment. She discussed her own fears, how my achievement had rekindled long-standing feelings of inadequacy, and how having a child had helped her recognize the destructive nature of her actions. She committed to becoming a better aunt and sister in the future. Lisa appeared to keep her word during the ensuing months. She would offer to babysit, send lovely gifts for the baby, and even support my decision to go back to work part-time against some critical family members. Despite her skepticism, Rachel agreed with my choice to give Lisa another chance. Although he never completely forgot the wedding dress event, James also started to get used to the new family dynamic. Everything seemed to be getting better. Lisa seemed to have a particular link with my son, truly acknowledged my triumphs, and attended family functions without causing trouble. I began to think that individuals could change and that my sister's jealousy problems had been resolved by maturity and therapy. This leads us to my son's first birthday celebration, which took place last week. With close relatives and friends, we had organized a modest but meaningful party. When Lisa showed up early to assist with the decorations, I recall being appreciative of our progress. Everything about the party was going great. My son was loving being the life of the party, everyone was having a great time, and the decorations were stunning. The cake moment then arrived. Lisa abruptly approached the DJ we had hired for background music just as James and I were getting ready to assist our son with his first birthday cake. My stomach fell when she reached for the microphone, recalling my 25th birthday. Of course she wouldn't, not at her nephew's first birthday, not again. Update 1. A week has passed since the disastrous birthday party, and I must tell you what transpired. Lisa seized the microphone as we were going to do the cake ceremony, as I said in my initial post. She spoiled my son's special occasion by announcing to everyone that she was expecting her third kid. What followed, however, was much more startling. She approached me directly, gave me an envelope, and declared that she wanted me to plan her impending baby shower because I had received her support during my first year of motherhood. A comprehensive to-do list, complete with venue recommendations, theme ideas, and even a guest list with dietary requirements, was enclosed in the envelope. As I read through it, decades of repressed rage erupting, my hands were shaking. I ripped the list to shreds in front of everyone without giving it any thought. The room fell silent. Lisa's arrogant face changed to one of amazement, and then she began to cry. She started complaining about how hormonal I was acting and how I was ruining her special announcement. In a low voice, my father, who has at last begun to see through her deceit, urged her husband Greg to take her outside. As expected, my mother attempted to defend Lisa by arguing that she had every right to express her happiness at the celebration because she was my son's aunt. God bless her, Rachel took command of the issue. Declaring that this was neither the place nor the time for such pronouncements, she firmly escorted Lisa and Greg out. It was a messy aftermath. James was angry, not only at Lisa, but also at me. Although he could understand my frustration, he believed that rather than making a spectacle at our son's party, I ought to have dealt with it in private. He made a statement later that evening that truly resonated. We can't control Lisa's actions, but we can control how we react to them. Despite our efforts to save the celebration, the majority of our attendees left soon after the incident. Fortunately, my son was too small to comprehend what was going on, so he played contentedly with his new toys. However, as I gazed at the partially consumed cake and discarded party decorations, I couldn't help but believe that Lisa had once again managed to sabotage an important event in my life. Throughout the week, the fallout has persisted. On social media, Lisa has been sharing passive-aggressive posts about poisonous family members and how some people never care about other people's pleasure. She also involves our extended family. On multiple occasions, aunts and cousins have called to apologize for my outburst. After reading Lisa's posts on social media, Rachel unfriended her, demonstrating her unwavering support for me. My mother keeps saying that I should be the mature one and apologize before Lisa's pregnancy hormones cause her too much stress, But my father called yesterday to say he understood why I behaved the way I did. Since our first quarrel, James and I have hardly discussed the incident. He's not incorrect. After years of Lisa controlling every important event in my life, I think I could have handled it better, but something inside of me just lost it. This time, I'm thinking of permanently severing my relationship with Lisa. I'm sick of giving her opportunities to harm me, and it's obvious that therapy hasn't improved her as much as she promised. Right now, my top priority is shielding my son from her harmful conduct when he gets older. Is it improper of me to want to avoid contact? Was it better for me to confront her after the party? I feel that my response was warranted, but I'm still feeling bad about spoiling my son's celebration. Report 2. Everything has drastically changed in the 2 weeks since my last report. What began as family turmoil has grown into something far more significant, revealing years of deceit and manipulation by Lisa. Rachel approached me with some intriguing information following the event at the birthday party. The worst part wasn't that Lisa had apparently been lying to our extended family about me for years. As our father's financial controller, Lisa had been embezzling money from our family business, which Rachel had found out about. I have certification as an IT consultant with a focus on financial systems. I used my knowledge to stealthily start looking through the company's documents. I discovered something startling. For years, Lisa had been falsifying the books, taking tiny sums of money that built up to more than $200,000. This clarified how, even after claiming financial difficulties and only partially repaying me for my wedding gown, she was able to maintain her opulent lifestyle. Last week, I brought the evidence to my father's office. Despite his devastation, he acted right away. He convened an urgent family gathering that included our extended family members who had stock in the company. Lisa showed up looking smug as usual, likely anticipating another chance to play the victim over the events at the birthday celebration. Rather, my father projected the financial documents I had found to begin the discussion. As he meticulously went through each bogus transaction, Lisa's face lost its color. I came forward with my expert analysis demonstrating blatant patterns of intentional manipulation when she attempted to attribute it to accounting faults. I wasn't finished though. From the wedding dress incident, which included a signed confession from our aunt, to proof that she had spread false accusations about me to clients and relatives, Rachel and I had assembled an extensive dossier detailing Lisa's years of deception. We even have security camera footage of her rehearsing her pregnancy announcement at my son's birthday party. Greg, Lisa's husband, made the most damaging disclosure. He confessed that Lisa had been lying about her pregnancies to fit in with other people's significant occasions after being driven to his breaking point by the proof of financial fraud. When she announced it at my son's party, she wasn't even pregnant. To get more sympathy, she had intended to stage a miscarriage later. Our father made two significant statements as the gathering came to a close. First, Lisa would face financial fraud charges from the corporation. Second, rather than appointing Lisa, the assumed heir to the family firm, as CEO, he had chosen to appoint me, with my technical expertise and demonstrated honesty, as his successor. Lisa's well-planned world fell apart. After realizing her true character, our extended family severed their relationship with her. The following day, Greg filed for separation. As security walked Lisa out of the office, not even our mother, her long-standing supporter, spoke. The fallout has been rapid. Lisa has been placed on leave while a thorough inquiry is conducted. To recoup the stolen money, our family's attorney is drafting both criminal and civil lawsuits. The shareholders, who understood that my technical experience may aid in modernizing the business, unanimously endorsed my appointment as future CEO. Lisa had always wanted the role of head of our family's charity foundation, and Rachel has been given it. Together, we're trying to mend the harm she did to our family's business and relationships. For my part, I experience an odd mixture of loss and vindication. I'm glad the truth is out at last, even if I never wanted things to end this way. James is pleased with my professional handling of the situation, and my father has expressed regret for years of supporting Lisa's actions. Justice can occasionally appear in unexpected ways. I did more than simply stand up for myself. I also revealed the truth and safeguarded our family's heritage. Now that Lisa's manipulation is finally finished, our family can start to move on. Report 3. A month has passed since my last report, and I must disclose that Lisa's condition has taken even more drastic turns. First, the court case has formally started. The forensic accounting team at our organization found that Lisa's embezzlement was much more extensive than we first believed. For almost 10 years, she had been setting up fictitious vendor accounts and using them to transfer business funds. Over $500,000 is now thought to have been stolen, which is more than twice as much as what we first discovered. Given that a portion of the pilfered monies came from the philanthropic coffers of our family foundation, the district attorney's office has shown a keen interest in the matter. Lisa's carefully constructed reputation as a philanthropic socialite has been utterly destroyed by the revelation that she had been embezzling money from initiatives designed to aid impoverished youngsters. Even more startling evidence has come to light during Greg's divorce procedures. He learned that Lisa had covertly kept several private bank accounts in which she kept the stolen funds. After our father retired and turned over the business, she had been preparing to leave him and run off with the money. The irony is that, prior to our father making his succession plans public, she made a lavish pregnancy announcement at my son's birthday celebration, in order to ensure her status as the preferred kid. Our social circle has been severely impacted. It seems that Lisa had been using the information she had accumulated over the years to blackmail a number of family friends. These friends shared their stories once the truth about her misdeeds was revealed. In order to preserve her social standing and obtain inside knowledge about our family business, she had established a whole network of manipulation by leveraging people's secrets. Last week, at a family meal that Lisa clearly did not attend, my mother, who had always stood up for Lisa, finally spoke out. She sobbed and acknowledged that she had allowed Lisa's actions because she was afraid. It seems that Lisa had threatened to reveal some of Mom's previous transgressions if she didn't always support her. My mother has sought therapy as a result of this discovery in order to cope with years of emotional abuse and manipulation. In terms of business, I've started collaborating closely with our father to update the financial processes of the organization. We're putting in place digital tracking technologies and new security procedures that would have stopped Lisa's embezzlement plan. After finding a number of other anomalies that Lisa had concealed, Rachel has assumed the lead in reorganizing the family foundation. Our wide family network was the most fulfilling growth. Lisa had always boasted that she was a member of numerous prominent social groups and charitable boards. She has been fired from every job since word of her crime spread. Her meticulously maintained social media presence, which was filled with social gatherings and charity galas, has simply vanished. Her old best friend paid us an unexpected visit this weekend and gave us a USB disk that included years' worth of text messages and emails. Since we were teenagers, Lisa had been methodically ruining my reputation in our social circle. She had made up stories about me stealing from family members, circulated rumors about me having drug problems, and even attempted to undermine a number of my consulting engagements by lying to prospective clients. Our lawyer has added defamation charges to the mounting pile of legal complaints against her since the evidence was so strong. There are now claims for both monetary and reputational damages in the civil complaint. We held a family gathering yesterday to talk about the direction of our family business. All of the staff responded well when Father formally stated that I would be taking over as CEO in the future. Over the years, other employees shared their own accounts of Lisa's manipulation and bullying. With an emphasis on openness and moral business conduct, we are currently undertaking a comprehensive corporate reorganization. Lisa herself has been forced to move live with a distant cousin in a different state and is facing major criminal charges. After Greg's attorney provided proof that she had fabricated multiple prior pregnancies for manipulative objectives, her attempts to play the victim have completely fallen flat. According to a message sent to Rachel yesterday by the cousin she is staying with, Lisa is still attempting to plot her way out of the predicament because she cannot accept that her web of lies has finally come to an end. Seeing our family together without Lisa's destructive influence has been the most consoling aspect of the entire ordeal. Working together to mend our familial ties and our professional endeavors, Rachel and I have become even closer. In therapy, my mother is improving as she finally realizes the extent of the harm her enabling conduct caused. James has been a huge assistance during this process, assisting me in striking a balance between my family life and my new company obligations. Instead of manipulation and drama, our son is flourishing because he is surrounded by genuine love and support. Using some of the money seized from Lisa's theft, we have chosen to create a college fund for him, transforming her selfishness into something constructive for the coming generation. In retrospect, I see that the actual tipping point wasn't Lisa's statement at my son's birthday celebration. It was only the last thread that caused her whole phony life to fall apart. Justice can occasionally be served in unexpected ways, and the truth, no matter how long it has been suppressed, will finally surface. The tale of our family is about escaping destructive tendencies and creating something greater from the ashes of dishonesty, not merely about justice or retribution. I feel totally free from Lisa's shadow for the first time in my life, and her demise has become our family's rebirth. Update 4. My last update was 4 months ago. This family saga's last chapter is now complete, and justice has been done in unexpected ways. Last Monday, Lisa received an 8-year prison term for financial malfeasance, fraud, and embezzlement. After discovering that she had embezzled from charitable foundations for children, the judge became especially stern. Evidence of her identical methods at prior jobs surfaced during the trial, revealing a distinct pattern of strategic activity. She has been sentenced to pay fines in addition to full reparation. Greg made sure that everyone was aware of Lisa's habit of fabricating pregnancies in order to manipulate her, and his divorce is official. Without the poisonous influence of their mother, his adolescent children now regularly spend time with us and form wholesome bonds with their aunts. Our mother has undergone the most notable transformation. She has changed as a result of months of therapy. She apologized heartily for allowing Lisa's behavior for so long during a recent family get-together. She currently collaborates closely with Rachel at our family foundation, where she focuses on initiatives that assist victims of emotional abuse. Under the new leadership structure, our business has prospered. Modern financial security mechanisms have been put in place by Dad and me, and last month we were able to secure a significant government contract that Lisa had previously destroyed. The work atmosphere has significantly improved, and people who were formerly stifled are now flourishing in their positions. Last weekend was the first time the extended family got together without Lisa. There was a noticeable difference: sincere discussions, a sense of calm that had been lacking for decades, and no underlying strain. Stories of Lisa's previous manipulations were told by a number of family members, which resulted in mutual understanding and healing. Finding Lisa's old diary in her old office was an especially confirming discovery. It included thorough preparations to ruin my name and take over the family business. I was able to realize that her animosity wasn't directed at me, but rather at her own ingrained fears, after reading it with my therapist. Within our organization, Rachel and I have started a mentorship program to assist young women in family companies in identifying and thwarting workplace deception. We are committed to transforming our bad experience into something constructive for other people. At her sentencing, Lisa's last attempt at manipulation, a letter alleging she was the victim of a family conspiracy, failed miserably. The judge's answer was flawless. The evidence clearly demonstrates a pattern of deliberate dishonesty. Even now, your attempt to play the victim shows why society needs to be shielded from more harm by this sentence. James and I are committed to provide a healthier home environment for our baby. By establishing a community education trust with the money recovered from Lisa's embezzlement, her greed has been transformed into something that will benefit others. I came to the realization that the occasion that led to these revelations, my son's first birthday party, was actually a blessing. Sometimes a spectacular incident is necessary to reveal secrets. I'm happy that we confronted abuse and brought about constructive change, even though I never intended for our family to become a cautionary story. The bonds of fear and manipulation are severed. The legacy of our family will be one of fortitude and honesty rather than dishonesty and dominance. Retaliation isn't the only goal of living a good life. It's also about ending destructive patterns and creating something better for future generations. I would want to express my gratitude to the Reddit community for their support during this journey. During my lowest points, your messages and remarks kept me going. Although the road to justice can occasionally take unforeseen detours, constructive change is achievable with honesty and willpower. I discovered my wife's affair during her writing workshop, hired a P1, gathered evidence, and vanished without a trace before she returned home. Though my friends call me AB, never Andy, I go by Andrew Baker. Every now and then there's a nasty drunk or uneducated man trying to act too familiar and calls me Andy. "So Andy, what's your job?" they probe. I reply, "I made this neat little tool for cops to check drunk individuals from 40 feet away. They have even begun to link them to radars throughout town. That typically shuts them down. That gadget isn't real, though, should you still not know it yet. I obviously have not much tolerance for stupidity. Lie to me, and things go bad. I'm a straightforward guy, not complicated at all. I am content in my career and lead a simple life. I am an engineer employed by a large national corporation with offices scattered over the nation. I have pals, and although I'm not a heavy drinker, I do have a sporadic beer. Though that's my struggle, honestly I tend more toward nachos. I try to keep myself in reasonable form for my age since, if I let it spiral out of hand, I will gain weight. Every chance I had, I used to go sailing. Now, having a wife and 2 small girls takes up a lot of time. I sold the yacht at last. That was only one of the concessions I have voluntarily given over the years in order to spend quality time with the individuals truly important to me. For 25 years, Karen and I have been contentedly married. Her level of education is high school teacher. Right now our 2 girls are at college. While her younger sister Denise is in Boston University, Claire is a student at Brown University in Rhode Island. I most certainly couldn't afford those pricey universities, but fortunately the girls are committed students with outstanding scholarships. Our house is in North Carolina, more precisely the Research Triangle. It revolves on some outstanding Raleigh institutions and is flanked by first-rate high-tech businesses. One may live and work here quite nicely. Though it would just make me hungry, I could tell you about Carolina BBQ. When the daughters chose institutions up north, I was a little let down, but I know they had to venture beyond their comfort zone, and that is eventually a good thing. Our daughters are wonderful, smart, humorous, lovely young women with strong moral principles. Though I am daily concerned about their safety, I have faith in their judgment. Seeing children mature and start their path towards independence meant that my wife and I could at last have some alone time once more. For some time, I had been excited about this stage. I pictured going home every evening to a loving wife who would concentrate on me, and vice versa, with both girls away at college. I saw us picking back up our relationship and having happy days. It resembled almost exactly being newlyweds once more. We could have dinners out, go to movies and plays, and at last rediscover each other the way I had always wanted. But reality turned out very differently than I had imagined. To be honest, thinking back on that first year of an empty nest, I saw Karen changing. Her hobbies seemed to be changing. Although the change was slow, in time it became increasingly clear. At first I saw these as her means of blossoming. Now our girls were no longer living with us. But finally I came to see that her priorities and values were undergoing a major change. English teacher Karen specializes in creative writing. She is, fairly speaking, a frustrated writer as well. She never really had the opportunity to write as she desired, being a teacher and young mother. Karen writes during the summer and whenever she could spare an hour or two, but so far not much has come out of it. She liked to compile rejection letters after sending her essays and short tales to literary publications. Her ideal magnificent masterwork was never realized. Though as a writer she has never ventured beyond predictable and perhaps too theatrical tales, I will admit I enjoy reading her. She has a romanticized view of what a writer should be, and covertly I believe she is more drawn to the concept than the actual work. Still, I'm happy too if she is happy. Karen has belonged to several writing clubs most of our marriage. Aiming to help each other's writing, these are meetings of people who come together to offer comments, ideas, and conversations about their work. While some of these organizations seem to be more like clubs of mutual adoration, others seem really useful to me. Her last group, the one she belonged to when everything broke down, contained components of both. They alternated visiting each other's houses, and during their encounters here, I would try to give them privacy. I tried once but stopped since Karen and a few others objected. There are about 10 people in Karen's present writing group, men as well as women. While some of them I could live without, others I enjoy. When you meet them, half of them really are relatively average and the other half really stand out. For example, the lady Reggie is rather passionate in creating biographies and history. She still manages to captivate readers despite doing scholarly-oriented book writing and serious research. I have loved reading all of her works. Betty likes to write fantasy. She tends more toward the talking unicorn type than I would have her as the next J.K. Rowling. She's nice, and her writing seems to be mostly for her own enjoyment. Who can dispute that? Bill takes on the group's know-it-all function. Apart from that, he appears all good. A bit of that goes a long way. Then Frank comes in. The first time I saw him, I felt scared. Ever since, those alarms have kept ringing in my head. It was very evident when I met Frank that I was being introduced to him rather than the other way round. Examining me, he asked, "So Andy, what's your profession?" I looked at my wife. She shook her head and somewhat frowned. I said simply, "I'm an engineer." Frank gave no smile, more of a smirk in reply. Though not precisely out of earshot, I said I had given up trying to interact with their group and preferred to keep rather hidden and quiet. Until they forget, I usually find myself in the next room silently working or on the rear porch with a window open so I could hear their talk. Frank seems to share private jokes and a connection that makes me uneasy when he talks to Karen, early on I found. He occasionally makes her ego stronger and other times seems as though he understands her inner thoughts in a way I value less. He mentions past talks that seem to be only between them, and I get the sense that the rest of the group doesn't recall those times. Although it's only a feeling, I have informed her I find it unpleasant. She dismisses my worries, and I know not to press the topic. She knows my feelings, the rest is up to her. During its sessions, the group performs a set ritual. Their work session ends with some wine and relaxation. It was during this period that I came to see some of them were just acting. It took place in the midst of the spring semester, close to early March, when the subject turned to the way actual writers lived. Oh, you know, all the eminent writers were alcoholics. That's right, they drank in the afternoons and evenings and penned in the mornings. It awakens the mind to fresh concepts and helps one to relax. Their creative ideas then start to flow in the mornings and they start writing. Actually, the really great writers all went through love relationships. That's the real inspiration for them. Frank was saying just that. Thanks for providing, Frank. I'm beginning to get your perspective. Karen's words then really hit me like a gut punch. Indeed, exactly. The real inspiration is found in the intensity and the thrill of the unknown, that is, in keeping it all secret from everyone else. I persuaded myself it was only a joke as some of them laughed and others didn't. Still, I listened in on their chat all through the evening. Maybe we should all have a wild night of passion sometime and then each write the next great American novel. Bill had that. I wasn't sure if he meant it humoristically or not. Not great writing comes from character defects. Features like humanity, empathy, and facing the riddles of the unknown really help to create great stories. I said before that Betty appealed to me. Memorable tales are about conquering obstacles, aiming for excellence in spite of all the odds, and leaving the planet in a better condition than it was in before. Well, perhaps if you conjure the right enchantment, we can avoid all the hassle. Again, that was that jackass Frank. To their shame, some in the group seemed to find that humorous. I had a hunch Reggie didn't either, and I'm not quite sure Betty did. They were debating writer drinking practices and affairs, and I kept listening without offering anything. Then I overheard a fascinating bit of their chat. Is anyone else planning to apply for the Illinois Writer Workshop this summer? Frank was now speaking once more. Oh, I turned in my application already. Keeping my fingers crossed will help them to accept me. 6 weeks of just writing and talking with other authors could truly change things for me. This was Karen. I had never heard of her before. Frank caught it up straight immediately. I am sure they will welcome you. Your work has improved really dramatically this past year. I think you will get admitted. I've also applied. I'm not as sure I'll be in though. My own feeling of internal radar for stupidity was off target. Frank, really, when did you start to get so modest? Though at this point I still loved and trusted my wife, I didn't like what I was hearing. Trust is basic when you have been married for the length of time we have. You ask not, is she up to no good? Not even cross your head the idea. Your mate is your other half. Marriage is a partnership. She has proved her dedication year after year. All you really want is for her to discover the success and happiness she so deserves, or at least that is what you think. Later on though, everything falls apart when you find your confidence has been betrayed. Update 1. I let myself ignore the overheard exchange from that evening over time. As I said, I trusted my wife entirely. Some younger males might not understand it, but trust becomes a way of life rather than only a decision after being married for more than 20 years. Late April found me finishing some outside gardening when I decided to call it a day and head indoors. Reaching for the kitchen door, I discovered my wife on the phone exclaiming, "I can't wait, 6 whole weeks without any responsibilities, no commitments, and no one waiting for me to get back." At the last bit I started to perk. I stopped in front of her and listened. Absolutely, those 6 weeks will be the most self-indulgent of my life. I owe it to myself, you too owe it to yourself. Not one of these appealed to me. I walked through the kitchen opening the door. Karen appeared shocked. Well, I have to sprint, AB is here and I have to start cooking dinner. She grabbed fast. I said, who was that on the phone? Oh, just Regina. We were discussing the shortly closing of schools. Like heck it was, I said. I wanted to probe her about some of her remarks, particularly one about no one waiting for me to come home, but I realized that tonight the truth might be in scarce supply. Though I tried to hide it for the moment, my attitude worsened. Dinner later that evening, the other shoe dropped. AB, the amazing news I got today will not surprise you. Recall that Illinois Writer Workshop for which you applied? Come on, you hardly pay attention to me. To be honest, I had heard about the workshop before. But that was only because I had overheard her talking about it over a month ago. I don't remember you stressing it. Sure, I did. I applied for a 6-week workshop for authors. At the University of Illinois, it falls mid-June through late July. Their lecturers give lectures. They also bring in eminent authors for seminars and debate forums. We then get rather busy writing. I was accepted and this is an amazing chance. That sounds excellent, honey. We could certainly handle it financially. Perhaps I might join you and take a little time off from work. I would really enjoy listening to those authors speak. Her response appeared odd. Well, we can think about it. I won't have much free time to spend with you over the very demanding 6 weeks. My gut was tingling once more. Well, you know I'm not exacting. I could be the group's coffee guy. She gave a really tense smile. That may be lovely, darling. Let us monitor things. Such deflections have come from both sides. I knew what they meant. She was making sure I wouldn't wind up traveling to Illinois with her. I get the sense you would rather I didn't go with you. Oh no, it is not like that. I merely worry you might find it boring. You're into computers and circuits, and this is basically writers discussing major concepts. I kept that to myself. Back off, I thought. When I was being excluded, I knew. I said, ending the discussion, I'm sure you'll excel. After Karen retired to bed later that evening, I checked our phone records online. AITA provides that capability. All incoming and outgoing calls as well as text messaging are logged. When I looked over the phone log, the call I had cut off wasn't with Reggie. Or if it was, Frank's phone started it. When you find your wife lying and learning she has plans to exclude you, it's amazing how quickly trust can fall apart after a quarter century of marriage. Weeks went by, and she appeared fixated on the workshop's talks. She rejected the idea every time I tried several times to talk about maybe visiting at some time or going with her. She next moved from rationalizing to manipulating. AB, I have some interesting news. Late June saw me get you and Jake 2 passes to a fishing camp in northern Canada. You can take Jake, and both of you will love fishing for those large brown fish you constantly mention. Although it was very costly, I wanted to show thanks for your understanding of the writer's workshop. And I felt a little bad since you wouldn't be having fun, hence I want you to go and have a fantastic time. We may then discuss our experiences when I get back. Something didn't seem right. Thanks, sweetheart, that shows consideration of you. To be honest, I would enjoy your company more. AB, we have seen this. Simply said, it makes no sense. I will be working all through. I would feel guilty ignoring you in such a manner. I looked at her face and eyes momentarily, trying to make sense of it. Was it contempt? Thanks, honey. Canada seems entertaining. My voice was devoid of energy. I was mentally organizing my choices. A surprise trip to Illinois took the front stage. Well, you could at least say it while grinning. Those tickets cost a lot of money, so you should be glad. Sure, sounds fantastic. To tinker for the evening, I descended to the basement. Our ancient house had one of those floor grates in the corridor. Originally, the first floor was heated by it, allowing warm air to pass from the furnace room. I first made a point not to step on it inadvertently, but with time I grew used to it and forgot about its existence. There is also the phone in the hall. I was quietly working in the basement, thinking about what to do when I heard Karen on a call. Yes, I handed him the passes. He remains unsure. I keep telling him he won't love it. I'm not sure exactly. No, I cannot merely advise him against showing up. I want it too, but I also want to stay married later on. I simply need him to allow me some time to enjoy myself over a few weeks. I have earned it, I am due. I do want those weeks with you as well. All fine, let us wait a while. I believe he will show up. All right, darling, I miss you too. For me tonight, write something outstanding. She cut off the call with that. I got a lump in my throat. I'm not naive. I hear cheating and know it's not good. Karen either was thinking about or in an affair. Anything less, and she would still have a lot of work to do explaining. It took me 20 minutes to collect my ideas, but I decided that for now I had to start acting like the kind of liar I've always hated. At least for the moment I had to hide my goals until I had a strategy. In a very loving voice I said, Karen, I'm heading over to see Jake and give him the good news. As I phoned upstairs. Oh, that's fantastic, darling. Enjoy, she said. And I was out the basement door exactly like that. I required distance. Seeing Jake was only a pretext. Thinking about it, I knew I needed someone to confide in. And Jake had been my closest buddy from early life. You're kidding me, Jake responded, not dodging around the issue. No way, I won't buy it. She would never turn on you, AB. Well, she's certainly working hard to keep me away from that workshop, and she's calling someone baby, and it's definitely not me. We merely sat there, silent. Most men want from a friend simply sitting with them and sharing the suffering. You have to talk to her about this, AB. Assuming the worst without knowledge of the truth will not help you through the next few months. And what is she likely to say? When I review the phone records tonight, how much would you want to wager that Frank was not the one she spoke with? Frank she called baby, and Frank she's plotting with wasn't Frank. I am not laying that bet. What then is your intended course of action? I'm going to grab a seat and have a frank conversation. After 25 years of marriage, that's what you do. I'll tell her I love her, let her know I'm offended she doesn't want me to travel with her, and I'll ask her straightforwardly what she's up to, that she doesn't want me there. Do you suppose she would tell you the truth? Nope, but I'll tell her the truth. Even if some of it isn't what she wants to hear. She'll know how much I love her. She will understand that cheating on me will destroy our relationship. She will then most likely try to persuade me that I should simply go fishing since I am seeing things. I stopped just for a moment. By the way, one ticket is for you. I have two for a fishing camp in northern Canada in late June. Nice, Jake said, catching himself. I mean, friend, here I am to help you. I laughed a little bit. I have always known exactly where his allegiance resides. Before I left for home, we spoke, exchanged ideas, and drank a few beers for 3 hours. I opened up about practically everything. After dinner, asking Karen to come sit with me in the living room. I pushed back a few things. Sweetheart, I have some quite major worries. About the writer's workshop, I don't think you have been quite open with me. You mentioned it to me only once you had already scheduled a trip, even though I overheard you talking about it with your writer group back in March. I have to admit, I didn't find it funny when you mentioned how common affairs are among brilliant authors. Frank and you have been talking about your vacation, but when I ask, you lie and say it's someone else. You know how I feel about that guy. Then, when you told me you were accepted, you seemed deliberately aloof and discouraged me from participating. Though I am not here, I wanted to partake in this fascinating trip with you. Rather than thinking about it, you set plans for me to be somewhere else without even talking to me. Just committing on my behalf. You seem to be attempting to make sure I won't be around when you're in Illinois. You haven't been quite honest with me, hence I'm beginning to wonder if you have been entirely loyal. AB, I would never be dishonest with you and I have never treated you that way. What has drawn you in? Being your husband, all I want is for you to have fun. That you could believe something like that about me truly hurts. I have no control over my emotions or what sets things off. You know, I love you. Since our first meeting, I have loved you. Nevertheless, I cannot just ignore the concept of treachery. Are you hoping for that, Karen? Is this writer's workshop your haven from our marriage? Update 2. Our dialogue came to an end with that. Not more loving or sympathetic conversation. She started screaming and spent the remainder of the evening either shouting or silently. And for the next week, it was silent. She was trying to get me to turn back down by applying the silence treatment, thereby punishing me. It did not work though. Actually, it reinforced my beliefs solely. But I knew I wasn't moving in this direction and finally I let her think she had achieved success. Not much I could do to stop her from cheating if she intended to do so. The phone call I listened in on even hinted she might have done it already. I finally thanked her for the vacation to Canada, but my attitude stayed dark until the trip was finished. She changed her attitude fast and behaved like a devoted wife to support the behavior she wanted from me once she had what she wanted. She seemed to flick a switch, which just made me more suspicious. When I am the recipient of manipulation, I know it is happening. I asked a colleague who he consulted when he suspected his wife of cheating. The Illinois Writers' Workshop was just 500 meters away and I knew none there. I took his advice and the person he suggested was Illinois-based. I contacted them asking for help. The fact that the session occurred on a state university campus made its location favorable. Although they couldn't take part in the program, the PI's agents could roam the campus and monitor the rooms as needed. The participants would eat in the university cafeterias, go to nearby clubs, and share a big dorm with other students. This gave room for covert monitoring. With modern tools, some of these kids would actually be working for me. Our daughters decided to stay in their colleges for the summer to work in research labs under their professors as the school year was drawing to a conclusion. We were still empty nesters then. I deliberately tried to invite her to dinners made at home and show her around. She appeared to be enjoying everything, hence I began to think I was improving. But every time I told her I loved her, I felt her dismissive I know attitude. The fragments of the puzzle came together gradually. She had merely taken me for granted, not stopped loving me. I knew her safety net was consistent and familiar. She knew she could go away, find thrills, break off our marriage, and I would be waiting when she got back. This insight brought my ideas into line. I knew I couldn't leave things unanswered the day she left. Her shuttle for the airport came as we stood close to the door. I begged and said, "Please don't do anything that could ruin us," tightly gripping her. She flashed me an annoyed glance in answer and retorted, "I'm tired of you not trusting me. We will have a major discussion about this when I get back." She snatched her luggage, kissed me quickly on the cheek and hurried for the shuttle. She left without ever looking back at me. I sensed then that my marriage was about to end. After 25 years and our 2 grown kids, it seemed our relationship was going away with little notice. The private investigator did his work really well. He said they were in an unfamiliar area so they didn't bother covering their acts. Karen has to have taken off her wedding bands on the plane since they vanished off her finger when she arrived at the studio. She claimed freely to be newly divorced, and Frank and my wife started to be inseparable right away. They were together all the time, kissing, holding hands, and behaving as passionate high school students would have. My PI cleverly set a tiny video camera in their dorm hallway. Karen and Frank only used one of their designated rooms, although each had one. Sometimes her chamber, sometimes his, but always they stayed late together. Although I knew what was happening in those shared dorm rooms, my PI and his crew went to considerable measures to verify my suspicions. Frank and my wife left early one evening before it was dark. Two agents, looking like normal college students, sat against the corridor wall and surreptitiously slipped a tiny fisheye camera under the door. Frank was seen in action for 20 minutes using this gadget. The video quality was shockingly clear, and he clearly hadn't used protection when he finished. That for me was the last straw. I was clearly done with this marriage. Anything else the team found served only as more proof to support my position. Regular updates from my private investigator kept me informed, but after that first week her future was obvious and my decision was taken. Beginning the early days of her workshop, I spent time implementing my plan. I wanted to be virtually invisible, almost ghostly. I would have vanished and there would be no turning back. No falsehoods, no ultimatums, no protracted negotiations, explanations, justifications, or attempts at reconciliation when she got back. The sole outcome would be divorce. My marriage was about to fall apart. Though it does not fade fast, what is love without trust? An unfaithful wife cannot define a future. Some could contend that my answer was weak. They could advise she deserves horrible humiliation, physical punishment, and total poverty. Ultimately, though, the law would forbid me from pursuing any of that, and I had no intention of ruining the rest of my life by seeking such cruel revenge on my adulterous wife and her lover. Eliminating the one thing she always depended on, the consistent presence that comforted, encouraged, uplifted and inspired her, would be my payback. I was walking away from myself. Frank lacked suitability for a catch. Long term, he was unable to meet her needs. Where would a 50-year-old divorced mother find emotional stability and love? I not give a damn. She no longer would be of interest to me. My private investigator would bring me more images, recordings, and proof of treachery by the person who promised me allegiance above all else every few days. The pictures and videos in the reports were very upsetting to view. The reports themselves were challenging to read. Especially when they covered me, the audio recordings were the toughest to handle. He is always emailing me about the fish he is catching and how incredible it is up there. Nearly every day he thanks me. She laughs. Frank joined in the laughing. He's clueless. You escape from his irritation by keeping him in the dark and treating him like a mushroom. He could as well have fun right now. I'll face that geek about his charges when I get back. How dare he continually charge me of cheating? But you're momentarily straying from our marriage, correct, beautiful? Alternatively, is another woman sleeping next night on my bed? She laughed at that, really. Well, I won't put up with that even if he may be onto something. Damn it, I'm a writer. His circuits and computer lingo are holding me back with their millimeters and micro thingamajigs. About huge ideas, what does he know? Update 3. As long as my existence stayed linked to hers, none of the several ways I considered for retribution would really satisfy me. One decision remained, and I started the process of separating from her. I explained everything honestly to my supervisor. Having gone through something like this personally not so long ago, he could appreciate it. He set up a transfer for me to show up at Portland, Maine, our corporate office. I thought the concept was interesting. I knew the folks there were professional, competent, and I liked their company. I found attractions in the town and the state as well. To get half of the furniture and all of my personal stuff up north, I booked movers. I checked that my automobile was in good condition for the trip, then spoke with a lawyer to start the divorce process. Regarding money problems, Karen had a retirement account and her own insurance. I made my daughters the beneficiaries and deleted her name from every one of my possessions. For no alimony, I signed a quitclaim deed turning the house over to her. She would keep her automobile but have to deal with her own insurance. Keeping my plans understated, I intended to handle credit cards and bank accounts closer to the finish. From that point ahead, I concentrated on strengthening my will. I meant to call her to show my love and to find out how the workshop was going. Hearing her lies would help me to get more convinced that my behavior was justified. She didn't let down anyone. She reacted with fervor, said her love, and went out to dinner in less than 2 minutes. Later on, my private investigator told me Frank was right next to her, mocking gestures and knowing glances, which just confirmed my choice. She clearly saw the matter as a joke, which validated my direction in life. Later on, I decided to text her instead of calling since I wasn't sure I could control my feelings over the phone. Though in reality I sent Jake and his wife on such vacations, I would tell her about great fishing excursions. They enjoyed themselves thoroughly. Regarding his marriage, Jake made a smart decision. They promised to see me and I did pay them a farewell visit before I left. Her 6-week workshop was ending, and I finished my last assignments. I put a for sale sign from a buddy who works as a real estate agent in the front yard. She was ignorant of that aspect, but I couldn't really sell the house without her permission, especially since I had already transferred ownership to her. Her first sight upon returning home would be the sign. To help the house seem less like a house, I changed the locks. I created a copy of the PI's report and chose specific pictures from her trip, including graphic stills from the video shot taken under Frank's door. To let her know she had been found out, I left all of this on the dining room table. The movers had already relocated most of my stuff. They would keep it until I needed it. I packed just 2 pieces of luggage, a briefcase, a laptop, and a guitar. I absolutely had to have my guitar. Something so valuable could not be trusted to anybody else. Frank could be engaged with my wife, but I loved my guitar very much. Knowing she wouldn't be back until late that evening, my first thought was to leave the next morning. I would be long gone when she showed up. But the evening before I changed my mind. She could only wait and worry. I wanted her to feel the suffering right away. Along with the words divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you, I emailed her 3 well-selected pictures of her with Frank. I chose one picture when they were almost close on the dance floor, obviously revealing she wasn't sporting her engagement and wedding rings. The second picture caught them holding hands as they entered his dorm room. The third was a crisp face-clear screenshot from the dorm room footage. She would see these pictures, and I hoped it would ruin her last beautiful night with Frank as they furiously looked for cameras that had already been taken down. Then I turned off my phone. Leaving the house our family had lived in for many years was a mix of grief, uncertainty, and newly acquired independence. All at once it seemed like the most difficult, uncertain, and freeing event of my life. My wife basically disappeared from my life. Though I hadn't personally caused it, it seemed as though she had died, not knowing the when or the why. The woman looking like my wife was someone I knew nothing about and I wanted no contact with. I was starting over and had no idea where I might be headed. Among the great loss, there was an unusual sense of emancipation. If only momentarily, the weight of dishonesty, treachery, and belittlement was offloaded from my shoulders. The sole expense was half of my life now unreachable. Late, but my mind was racing, so I drove almost 100 miles down the peaceful highway lost in contemplation till I came to a hotel for the evening. I was hoping for a real local breakfast restaurant, not for a chain motel. I searched for something real. I eventually found it and enjoyed what might be my final dish of grits for some time. My perspective changed and I started to rethink my path to Maine as I ate those grits. This signaled the beginning of my new life, and I had a long journey ahead. I had a 2-week window before employment began, so even if I could speed up my trip to Maine, fleeing my troubles, why accelerate? I needed time to gather my ideas, process her treachery and let the past go. I decided to go gradually. Enjoying the landscape on my northward drive and interacting with every state and its people as I passed through. My old life would give way to my new one this week. To be ready for a fresh start and clear myself of the ugly and blunders of my past, I meant to nurture my senses, including my taste buds. Wandering about Williamsburg among the summer throngs, the rest of the day was lost. I investigated the abilities of talented craftsmen and artists. I found somewhere to stay even though I had no reservation. My thoughts returned to my failing marriage only after a small dinner and settling in for the evening. She was probably going home about that time. Seeing the for sale sign on the front yard and knowing her keys wouldn't open the door, I wondered how she would respond. I traveled north along the winding roads toward Annapolis, Maryland's capital, the following day. Along Virginia's ancestral rivers, the York, Rappahannock and Potomac, which go into the Chesapeake Bay, I passed through little villages and old estates. Ahead, there was one road stretch headed toward my destiny. I would follow that meandering road, which led me from betrayal to a new chapter in my life. Update 4. At last turned on my cell phone, I sat in my hotel room in downtown Annapolis. It was, predictably, full with many missed calls, emails, and text messages. A few came from friends, most of them came from Karen. Despite it being difficult, I read and listened to every one of them. That was a step that was absolutely vital. Indeed, Karen was trying to persuade me that things were not as they seemed at first. She sent those texts from Illinois before going back home, then saw the remainder of the pictures and perused the PI's report. My pals were letting me know, meanwhile, that Karen was trying to find me by contacting everyone. She was looking in all the wrong places, little knowing it. Although Jake and his wife knew, I decided to deliberately keep the rest in the dark. Once I had been established, I would let them know. I knew immediately that I could not spend eternity ghostly. 2 calls from my girls started to worry me. Karen had gotten in touch with them trying to track me. As I wanted to do it in person, I had deliberately not notified them about my choice to leave their mother. I gently explained the matter to my daughters, though, since I cannot let them worry. Their mother could do such a thing, which infuriated them and made it difficult for them to believe. For this reason, I emailed them the identical images I had shown Karen the evening I left home together with the PI's report. They promised then not to tell their mother about my activities. One more missed call. My attorney told me Karen had been formally served with divorce papers. She knew now that I intended business. Frank's wife had also got a whole set of pictures, films, and audio recordings from his 6-week program. For Frank, that was a karma dosage. Driving over northern Maryland on the 3rd day of my trip, I eventually arrived at New Jersey. Well, not exactly with much enthusiasm. I entered New Jersey but stopped just before I arrived in Connecticut. Once in Connecticut, I spent several hours investigating some coastal historic towns. Though I had no particular objective, the architecture was so different from what I was accustomed to in North Carolina that I felt a strong sensation of being in a new place, both physically and emotionally. And avoided telling the authorities, but I spent an hour in Groton looking for as many submarines as I could. Those blackfish are quite stealthful. Looking along the coast, I was reminded that those nuclear submarines cut a hole in the hull to refuel the reactor and subsequently weld the hull back together. Was that another way to describe my circumstances? Could the first step in rejuvenating my life be Karen's treachery, which ripped a hole in my heart? Once I started down a new path, could I heal myself? The next day when I got up, I knew it would be the toughest day thus far. Following a filling breakfast of eggs, bacon, bread and a robust cup of black coffee, I prepared myself for a challenging chat with my eldest daughter, Claire, at Brown. The drive there took little time, and I was at her dorm about late morning. We agreed to postpone our talk a little so she could act happy for an hour or two. She showed me around the university, then brought me to the cafeteria, where she met her friends. These were exactly the kind of young men and women I had hoped she would surround herself with, friendly, attentive, and apparently supportive. I pulled Claire's roommate aside on our way out and told her Claire had a difficult day. She was supposed to watch my daughter. Sure, Mr. Baker, she said. She shared it with us last night. Here among us are all her supporters. Yes, my daughter had made sensible friend choices. Claire and I stayed in her dorm room talking for hours. I showed her pictures and played audio recordings I never would have imagined to expose to one of my kids. Her feelings swung from grief to rage. Mom would do that is beyond unbelievable. Is she the same person who raised us at all? She has become what kind of nasty person? Though I could relate to her, at that moment I had to step in. Claire is your mother whatever she does. And keep in mind that I, not you, she has betrayed. Sorry, Dad, but she broke my soul family. I am definitely affected by this. I couldn't contradict that. We kept talking all afternoon, and I showed her my ideas. I urged her to get her friends together, and we had dinner at the greatest restaurant in town, or at least the one within my means. Everyone seems to have delighted in a departure from the standard dining hall cuisine. I related tales of my own college eating experiences, and I believe it helped them to see their own circumstances in a fresh light. That night I remained at a nearby hotel. The next morning I had breakfast with Claire, hugged her tearfully, and then traveled north to repeat the procedure. Claire has to have told Denise, as her response was far more under control than that of her older sister. Though less astonished, there remained dissatisfaction and resentment. She asked to view the supporting materials. I showed her. Her mother called coincidentally as we were chatting, and I sent her the universal sign for, "No, I'm not here." I shook my head, waved wildly, and copied a throat-cutting action. She knew, Denise was always the family's more level-headed member. She then accomplished something I had never seen before. She said, "Dad phoned yesterday night, did he not? Is it true you have evolved into a lady who lies about cheating on her husband and engages in multiple partner involvement?" I stunned myself. Though at the same time I couldn't dispute the truth in her remarks, I wanted to chastise her for talking to her mother like that. "You heard Mom. You stayed 6 weeks helping someone else while Dad was alone at home. Mom, was it well worth it? Was it worth going without your spouse?" Really, my daughter uses words rather brilliantly. Note to self, stay off her negative side. Not much more ground to cover. Denise told me that although her mother was primarily in tears and trying to provide apologies, my daughter was not buying any of it. Not far from the university, I later brought Denise and her companions to a Thai restaurant named the Elephant Walk. Like her sister, Denise had selected her friends deliberately, and dinner was a nice gathering. One of her friends stated, "Mr. Baker, Denise told us about what you're going through, on our way back to campus. Last night, She was rather agitated. We helped her. Perhaps you could come back here and we will treat you to the cafeteria. That made the group giggle. I mean, really, maybe we can find a better place than that. This set off more chuckles, and we laughed all the way back to her dorm. After finding a place to rest for the evening, I had breakfast with my daughter in the morning, and on the 7th day of my trip I kept on going northward. I left Boston and arrived barely 2 hours south of Portland. My priorities now were my girls rather than my soon-to-be ex-wife. I couldn't be prouder of them. They were becoming strong, moral young women. I came to see they would negotiate the approaching divorce more skillfully than I had imagined. Leaving these two incredible jewels behind with no idea of when I will see them again presented a struggle on this day. As it happens, my concerns were unfounded. Not ready to face the realities of beginning my new life just yet, so when I arrived at Portsmouth, New Hampshire, I turned west and headed for the Presidential Range and the White Mountains. I arrived in the White Mountains and ascended Mount Washington via the Cog Railway. Feeling the chilly Arctic winds that seemed out of place in the early days of August, I finally sensed a rebirth inside myself as I stood there gazing across the breadth to the lesser peaks of the White Mountains and surveyed the lush pine trees below. Though alone, at least I was tall. I had changed, shedding the obligations and regrets of my previous existence. I was then ready to welcome the fresh chapter and all its possibilities. Standing on higher ground, I was ready to start a different trip. Everything I could have wanted was ahead. I placed a real maple syrup-topped pancake order the next morning. Right now I was in maple syrup country. Years to come would find me in the same surroundings. Restless and ready, I got back into my car and headed for Portland. Arriving in the middle of the afternoon, I chose to follow up with my new manager to let them know I'd arrived. About half of the office personnel knew me already, so I was greeted warmly. It was comforting. Those were the first happy, straightforward faces I had seen in a week. Henry, my new manager, got the staff assembled for introductions. I took a brief tour of the company, but not before everyone decided where we would all eat dinner. I thought it would be a downtown restaurant, but to my astonishment we found ourselves grilling steaks in Henry's place with all the accompaniments. Though I should have savored lobster in Maine, there was no hurry for it. This was more about getting back into society and savoring some really delicious steaks and quite exceptional local beer. They asked about my story. What was a guy from the South doing uprooting his life and moving to Maine at this point? I thereafter told my story. I left off the graphic elements but gave enough for them to grasp. I might get a bit short-tempered in the next few weeks, I said at closing. Though I have a lot to process, it is not my usual attitude. If I act out, perhaps you would call me out and advise me to chill off. Now and then I could use some mild pushback. Every man put his arm around my shoulder. Every woman present unexpectedly gave me a peck on the cheek. All they said, "AB," was, "We're here for you." All they needed to say. Later that evening, I turned on my cell phone once more after getting inside my hotel room. One of each of my daughters had sent encouraging notes. I had gotten perhaps 8 or 10 extra texts from the young men and women who loved the dinner and wanted me to know they would be there for my girls, so they must have shared my number with their friends. Those young people are really amazing. Many friends kept reaching out, so I decided to get in touch with all of them and explain the circumstances so they can stop worrying. I kept my whereabouts secret, that would come later. I just explained why I had left. Though at first they were reluctant to believe it, I sent them the same 3 pictures I had sent Karen and told them I had even more damning evidence should they require more proof. I considered it, but really I couldn't think of one way to keep her from making her own decisions. Let the truth out in due course. I had tried and it had not worked. Every one of them sent me loving notes and encouragement. I told them I would keep in touch. My ideas of becoming a ghost were clearly wishful thinking. Too many people cared about me, and that is undoubtedly a good thing. I listened to the missed calls while reading over Karen's last text messages. She came clean eventually and admitted, although her confession was laced with odd outbursts of wrath. She found me one way or another responsible for her behavior and for all that had happened. That is simply ludicrous. I texted her saying I would call her about noon the next day. It has to happen sooner or later. Let's say the talk was not at all fulfilling. She moved from denial to remorse to blame. She apologized. Over her, Frank had great influence. Her suffocating me was a result. I worked too much, hence I was at fault. She even dared to assert that between them, they were merely playing about. Nothing major happened. When she tried to persuade me she was merely looking for her creative inspiration, I almost started laughing. She even accused me of turning our girls against her, as if her own behavior hadn't achieved that without my help. When she finally stopped talking, I laid it out for her quite simply. She had plotted with Frank to turn on me, fought my attempts to mend our relationship, carried out the betrayal, And now she was dealing with fallout. The whys lost importance to me now. She was still begging her case and sobbing when I hung up. I was finished with her. Not turning back, I knew too much. Conveniently near the office, I found a basic but pleasant 2-bedroom apartment in an older building. Originally considering it as a temporary situation, I believed I could utilize the walking exercise but soon changed my viewpoint. Living simply in town, avoiding the added chores that come with owning a house, and having a little coastal cottage for weekends sounded like a wonderful idea. Then I considered why I should stop at a cottage. My seaside escape may be a yacht I purchase, kept parked in the harbor. Early October arrived by the time I worked through all of this. Though I had intended to live alone, it has not turned out that way. Actually, I spend more time with my daughters right now than I did in Raleigh. Every month they arrange a weekend trip, usually accompanied by friends. My apartment is alive during those 36 hours, and I generally treat them to dinner. Though I miss them right away, I do yearn for the silence once they are gone. A handful of my friends have visited and the others intend to visit when the weather is better. Surprisingly, though I live alone, I am not lonely. Along with all my travels, I have acquired new pals at work. The sailing community is vibrant and welcoming. I have met interesting women. I will, however, keep polite and well-mannered until the divorce is official. Karen still gets in touch with me even if the divorce will be formal soon. She would rather minimize the circumstances and never really stones. She says simply, "Everyone does it, it has no significance at all." It does though. The intimacy has weight, hence the dishonesty and manipulation are much more important. Though people evolve and I no longer see the use in conveying this to her. To be honest, my life is not quite apart from hers. Complete dissociation is not likely given 2 daughters and numerous mutual connections. Still, I no longer live with the everyday suffering of rejection and betrayal 600 miles separating us. Up until I was no longer living in hers, she was the focal point of my life. I am now building my own future and walking my own road. A number of favorable results came from the circumstance. To start with, I actually adore living up here. Though it's a bit of a shock, I'm experiencing my first Maine winter. If others can do it, so can I. Early darkness in this area actually makes indoor events seem cozier and more brilliant. I'm excited about spring when I can work on splicing lines and applying varnish because I started looking for a boat and came upon a spot with moorings not too far from town. The people are real, the microbreweries are excellent, and the neighborhood restaurants are decent. There is a range of music, dances to learn, like contra dancing, and I am still finding surprises. After all, I think life will go out for me. Is my heart at last healed? Not yet, but I have hope for the better life that is ahead since time has a way of curing hurts. Oh, and as a side note, Frank's wife appears to be as traditional as I am. She divorced him and kicked him out the house. Even worse is what is involved here. Frank and Karen are still unpublished. Am I the asshole for hating my older daughter for throwing a forbidden party that led to my younger daughter was assaulted by 4 men? First of all, I am a widow with 3 children, but in this essay I will be more focused on Leah, 14, and Maya, 18. 4 guys back in December sexually assaulted Leah. Maya organized a party when I was working the night shift, and 4 of the lads that were there attacked Leah. Said the least, it has been terrible. Leah quit cheering and has lost all of her energy. She also chose to skip her first year by just finishing her classes online. She only wears my late husband's hoodies all day and sleeps in my room now, with me. As a mother, I feel so powerless as I have no idea how I could support her. Many facts came out about Maya's involvement in this over the research. She did not set up her little sister, but I believe she mistreated her greatly. All of this might have been avoided if she only followed my guidelines. I never approved of a party. Before you people argue, well, you're her mother, it's not her job to watch your kid. The issue is, it was her job. She left Leah under supervision. To look after her sister while I work evenings, I pay her really nicely. We had reached an arrangement years ago. Leah is not in any sense special needs. Maya just asked that she make sure her sister finishes her schoolwork and gets to bed at a respectable time. Maya herself invited the guys that attacked Leah. She knew personally that they belonged to gangs and that she had no concern. Rather, what I discovered in this research is Leah was not interested when she sought to be with one of these boys. Trying to entice Leah to kiss him, this lad was pestering her all night. Leah got enough and headed to her room. That same boy and his buddies went up to my daughter's room and sexually assaulted her after Maya left the house to visit McDonald's. The worst aspect of this is that partygoers assumed a couple was fighting upstairs when she started screaming and did nothing. Not knowing what transpired till the party ended the next morning. For her and most likely the worst experience as a parent, having her do a rape kit traumatizing her. She tested positive for a treatable STD several weeks later as well. Ever since, my baby has been somewhat broken. Leah finds it quite difficult right now even if they did acquire those males and all four entered a guilty plea since they had evidence on their phones. Maya has been regretful, on the other side, and Leah has no resentment toward her and does not hold her responsible. She still adores her sister. I'm not sure why though. I've been really trying to forgive Maya but I can't. I am so furious at her. I can't even look at her right now without wishing to snap. Her prom falls next weekend. I really couldn't give a damn less. She approaches me to have talks, but I find it difficult to express any enthusiasm in them. I love my kid. I do not hate her right now. Only I have a deep detest for her. I have been reading self-help books in search of appropriate ways to handle this. I feel as though in life I cannot be honest with anyone about this. As a mother, I suppose this may be a call for help. Edit. I value all of your comments. Maya still watches Leah, which is the most often asked question I'm seeing. Hell no is the response here. I no longer trust her. It may take years to recover. Right now I'm on a break. Leah is not in treatment either right now. She told me she wouldn't be ready for it. She might be amenable to it once the sentence is over. Maya is in therapy as well, but she misses many of the visits. I'm in therapy as well, and it has helped me not want to snap at Maya and stay cool under pressure. Sending Maya to my parents' house for a little while to gain some separation from her is the one piece of advice I am most strongly contemplating though. Sorry, fast second edit. To my understanding, Maya isn't in a gang for the people wondering about that. Her most I have seen is smoking some cannabis and vaping. I'm also leaning toward Maya really being plain negligent that night since I also don't want to believe Maya would ever set her sister to be brutally attacked. Furthermore, I believe it would have surfaced in the research if Leah had purposefully set up herself. The other three were mature men. The lad Maya was trying to arrange Leah for was 17 at the time. He's 18 today. Update: Maya's arrest the evening Leah attacked was rather straightforward. Her charges were 2 misdemeanors and felony child endangerment. She paid a $2,000 fine, 60 hours of community service, and 3 years of probation. The court was rather friendly to her. I grabbed her car as well. But following this update, I might have ought to have punished her more severely. Turning now back to the update, TLDR at the bottom Thursday afternoon Maya and I got into a fight. Leah came to me virtually agitated and on the edge of tears after 5 people messaged her that day offering sympathies for her attack. Leah has been quite clear, she wants nobody she knows to know she was attacked. After more research, it comes out Maya told a group chat of 27 individuals Leah was the victim. Leah told me she feels ashamed and she can never return to school next year. I naturally then went to confront Maya about it. I was overreacting, she insisted, and Leah was acting dramatically. She did not see the problem when I tried to use reason to explain how she mistreated her sister. She interrupted mid-lecture and exclaimed, "Jesus Christ, Mom, you need to let her deal with this instead of always leaping to her defense. Leah is not unique among women everywhere who experience rape. At least they don't define their personality like she does entirely. She's fine as well." Last night, I actually listened in on her on the phone chatting to a lad. It suddenly clicked for me at that instant when I saw her mask slip and she was not really regretful at all. I answered, "Pack your," saying she would be living with my parents until I let her back. She did exactly that. However, Maya sent a text to meet her at her therapist session later that day the next morning. Looking back, I wish I had never gone since her therapist only saw her point of view during most of the visit. Maya opened up at the beginning of the appointment apologizing and outlining her reasoning for telling her pals. She was venting, hence she didn't consider it as a major issue since Leah seems good these days and the public case that was in the news is public. Leah lists as a Jane Doe and has no name, but I digress. We then descended into the smallest details of everything. Maya told me in front of the therapist that she feels emotionally abandoned by me and that I never seemed to care about her trauma in the scenario, which for her, meant having to stay in jail for a weekend and losing one of Leah's literal rapist buddies. Though I wish I could be laughing, I am dead serious. We discussed that for 30 minutes first. Given their father is no longer with us, her therapist said I should strive more to be Maya's mother and guilt-tripped me for not being more emotionally present for her. Though I am a terrible parent, I do not want to be emotionally present for Maya if it means supporting her and gassing over the relationship of the person who destroyed her sister's life. Maya has been telling Leah that the therapist was on one, particularly because she continued referring to what occurred to Leah as an accident or stating Leah seems happier these days. Leah actually still scores fairly low on mental health assessments yet is rather physically high on antidepressants. Feel free to skip over the next paragraph if I simply had an outburst, since I become quite graphic here and have a major trigger warning. I think it's kind of nasty that the two of you are ignoring Leah's trauma in all of this and keep referring to it as an accident, I told Maya and her therapist. Your sister was in the hospital suffering from something your friend did. You spent a weekend in jail. Ironically enough, if you ever listen to Leah, she has said that your friend was the most hostile toward her throughout the attack and was the source of most of her injuries, including strangling her. So for you both to sit here and criticize me for not caring that you lost your friend due to something horrible your friend did to your sister is just nasty. Right now, my main regret is helping you choose a lawyer. I ought to have let you figure it out for yourself and perish in that jail. At this time Maya began crying in the office, claiming it unfair that I held her responsible for Leah's fate. Leah kept hovering near to her at the party, so she told me the only thing she was attempting to do was get Leah out of her shell. Interjecting suddenly, the therapist asks Maya, how did Leah respond to you when you apologized? In such a protective way, Maya responds, apologize for what? I did not sexually harass her. When the therapist mentioned it, even she was startled, and at that moment I was startled, and at that moment I had heard enough. I got to stand, raise my hands and go. This was Friday afternoon. I haven't seen Maya since then. Maya has been messaging and calling me, pleading to come home so she might apologize to Leah and me, but at this point I'm not sure. I never imagined I would be the parent who would have no contact with my kid, but I'm not sure whether I could live around her. She is not repentant about what happened. I cannot trust her. Part of me wants to try to make it work for Leah, since she asked yesterday if she destroyed our family, and it crushed my heart. Leah adores and looks up to Maya. I doubt she can understand at this point that Maya also failed her. I simply find myself caught. Tell me if I'm wrong for not grasping Maya, though. I apologize for the not very cheerful update. I should thus say what happened that morning. By now I go home from work at 8:30 a.m., and my house was wrecked and several of Maya's buddies were still there. Of course, I argued with Maya a little regarding party planning. When I checked on Leah later, she was not in her room, but her linens were bloody. Maybe it was the time of the month and she was sleeping or washing in my bed. But as I looked about my room, she was nowhere. When I started phoning Leah, her phone did ring. I heard it emanate from my closet. It's a walk-in, and I observed her cocoon-like blanket-covered state. She wasn't awake when I shook her to get her going. When I tried to untuck her, I discovered abrasions around her neck and bleeding on her scalp. I began yelling for someone to dial 911. Leah started crying when she started to sort of wake up in the ambulance. Maya's friend raped her, and she first told me she couldn't get up since she was in so much pain. I honestly didn't care about Maya at that time when the cops and ambulance arrived. I advised her to be truthful with the cops and she ought to be okay. I knew nothing as I know today. They then drove her to the station where the cops questioned her. Leah's medical report revealed what had transpired, hence they chose to accuse her with child endangerment. When they told Maya what happened to Leah, I did not observe her response. I considered it to be a lovely moment nevertheless when she hugged Leah once she was released from jail. From that period, the only red flag that jumps out to me is Maya's partial lack of cooperation about the distribution of the names. She claims she forgot. Fortunately, DNA from Leah and the crime scene, all four of Leah's rapists were already in the system for earlier offenses, one even on probation, so they were readily found. Following that was a domino effect. My son is my oldest. He married a month before things fell apart, and I wanted him to savor the honeymoon period with his wife, so I didn't want to draw him in too much about Maya. His wife is quite helpful, and she takes Leah all the time for sleepovers, or just to get her out of the house. Although I know I'm not alone in dealing with this, my daughter F14 has been quite understandably depressed. In 4 years, at her early age, she experienced 2 horrific events. She lost her dad 4 years ago and suffered sexual assault back in December. I recall feeling as though the world was against me when I was 14, with both of my parents on my side and having never experienced an assault. I find it incomprehensible what she is going through right now. I asked her if she was okay when I heard her sobbing in the bathroom this morning. She said promptly she was okay. It just makes me feel so powerless as her mother, as I am unable to assist her or alleviate any of her suffering. Since both of my parents are still living and I have never been sexually molested, I cannot even completely identify with her. Since I cannot advise her and assist her with the current circumstances, I feel like I'm a bad mother. As a mother, I believe I should know everything. Unfortunately, I do not. I feel like 99.9% of the time I'm not sure what I'm talking about, hence every time I try to comfort her she most likely wonders, what is this woman talking about? Please leave some useful advice if any other mothers can relate. 3 children of mine are M24, F18, and F14. 4 years ago, COVID claimed the late husband quite unexpectedly. He lacked a will, but our life insurance policy paid a $360,000 death benefit. As his wife, I paid the whole cost. I chose to split the money 4 ways. I would get $120,000 and each of my 3 children would get $80,000. Since my kids were minors at the time, I promised them they could access their whole amount when they reached 18. Still, I would let them utilize some of their portion if they ever wanted to do something expensive. I looked after most of their requirements. I handed my son his portion immediately away as he was over 18. This was a verbal commitment, and I meant to follow through exactly. But recently, my middle daughter, let's call her M, was jailed in December for child endangerment after brutally mistreating her little sister, which resulted in something terrible happening under her care. She left roughly $65,000 after deducting some of her $80,000 for attorney and court fees. Fast forward to now, and my youngest kid is still somewhat challenged. She is on a high dosage of antidepressants and shows quite poor on mental health assessments during her visits. She usually jokes that she would be sent to a psych facility if she told the doctors or us how she really feels. Maya is no longer living with us. She is staying with my parents for now as I felt her presence was causing more damage than benefit to her sister. She has been pleading with me, nevertheless, to have the money I promised once she graduated. I have not been eager to do so. Familiar with the circumstances, my sister thinks Maya doesn't deserve the money and I should use it to keep home longer with my younger son, who will be alone throughout the day once I get back to work. Given my youngest's poor mental health and school being closed, I'm quite concerned about her. Maya is headed to start college, and I know most of the money would go toward that. Still, I am quite furious with Maya for the suffering she brought about for her sister. Making this choice is proving difficult for me. So supposing I retained her inheritance. Edit. Although I wasn't expecting so many comments, I am reading over all of them. I am conflicted since I honestly have no idea what my spouse would say if he were here. Part of me wants to believe he would really say to give Maya the money so she could attend college since he valued education highly. Another side of me too, knows that he would be far more harsh than I am and maybe disown Leah completely if he had known the whole truth about what happened to her. I'm conflicted as it's difficult to project what he would have desired. Update 2. Leah, my 14-year-old daughter, has been battling the fallout from the horrific act she went through last December. For us this past week has been particularly challenging. Last Tuesday everything began when a sheriff and another officer paid us a visit. One of the persons in charge of what happened to Leah, the person who videotaped the incident, had uploaded the footage to a group and now it's floating on some dark websites. Recorded in Leah's room, the footage included recognizable artifacts indicating her school attendance. When I heard this I was crushed. The way Leah responded startled me. She exhibited little emotional expression or tears. She just shrugged and murmured, "I figured," then sat there silently. Although the officials informed us that it is unusual for offenders to come back in these kinds of circumstances, they felt obliged to let us know for safety concerns. Leah returned appearing as though nothing had occurred, almost too happy after they departed. She dodged the subject although I tried many times to discuss it. This conduct persisted all week until she abruptly said she wanted to read her victim impact statement herself in court instead of allowing the prosecutor to do it. She believed that, lacking a trial, only the charges against those accountable were known, not the whole truth of what she went through. Her comment is a thorough narrative of that terrible night, but she has not been able to read it to me in whole as every time she tries she starts to cry. I only witnessed her really expressing her emotions at that one moment. Leah seemed especially happy all week until Saturday night and noted sleeping early, about 8 p.m. until I got a call from one of Leah's best friend's mother. I gave it little thought. Leah's last message to her daughter, a note expressing love and requesting her to check on her, worried her. Leah had tried to overdose on Zizquil. When I hurried to her room, knowing she would recover as a nurse, it broke my heart to see her waking in the hospital. She shrieked, "Why couldn't you just let me die? Mom, I want to pass. Feeling their hands on me wears me out. I want it to stop now. Please allow me to pass away." To help her relax, they had to knock her out. Leah was then put under a 72-hour psychiatric hold and then moved to a mental health hospital surrounded by peers her age. Leah has been suffering, particularly with a male staff member, maybe a psychiatrist who she claims has been asking intrusive questions about her personal life, making her uncomfortable. The staff advised staying longer than the first hold. Leah seems distant and staff members told me she is not joining in group activities. They even suggested limiting her access to me, but I asked them to hold off on putting such policies into effect. Given Leah's seeming trouble adjusting, I'm not sure if the inpatient environment we have now is appropriate. Her cry for her life to end haunts me still. It is a concept I cannot get rid of. Leah's buddy sent further information Leah had concealed from me. There is a nasty story going around that Leah had voluntarily engaged in something dangerous, and the cops were only involved out of shame. Young people can be rather nasty. Regarding my second daughter, Maya, 18, I haven't chatted with her in 2 weeks. I recently found, though, why Leah feels obligated to her. I discovered unsuitable texts on Leah's phone 2 years ago between her and Maya's ex-boyfriend. Saying Leah was much prettier and that he loved her yet inexperienced, he showed affection for her and even likened her to Maya. Maya was enraged and broke off with me when I told her, but she thought Leah had betrayed her by seeing her boyfriend. Even though Leah was just 12 at the time and her boyfriend was 17. Maya avoided Leah for 3 months following, and even with Leah's apologies, Maya still harbors resentment. Leah feels guilty about hurting their friendship with this episode. I'm sharing this to get it off my plate. I have kept these battles inside our family to guard my girls, but I am tired from always facing fresh difficulties and not sure how to heal them. I now find myself in the challenging role of determining Leah's mental readiness to testify at the sentencing for her abuser, though I wonder if she is in a stable enough position to manage a possibly traumatic occurrence, particularly since these guys genuinely have character witnesses. I worry she will blame me for this decision. Update 3. Additional details regarding the psychiatrist. Leah and I discussed what the psychiatrist said to make her uncomfortable more specifically. She informed me they made her sit down one-on-one to debrief why she was there and what was triggering these ideas when I left. She told him about the attack and opened up to him. But he wanted to know whether this was her sole sexual encounter. Leah answered yes, but he kept challenging her as if he didn't believe her, asking things like, "You can tell me if it wasn't your only experience. I am not going to inform your mother." Leah had to remind him again several times that it was her sole experience. He next inquired about her sexuality and whether she still found guys appealing. Leah claims she does not now give relationships any thought. She said she felt uneasy about him probing her sex life so much when they were alone in a room with the door closed. Although the psychiatrist might have been performing his duties, I would not accuse him of being improper. Rather, I believe he ought to have had a female staff member there or probe such issues. Before they met, he ought to have seen her chart. Update 4, back here with a much-awaited update. This runs long. TLDR at the bottom. Though much has happened, I will begin with something encouraging. Leah began treatment following her sentence, and she has been sharing good things about it. She said it was relieving not having to discuss the assault straightforwardly with her therapist. Her therapist recommended some EMDR sessions as well. Her first one is set for next week. Her general doctor advised she start birth control and cleared her to begin cheering once more should she so wish. I'm not sure about it as I know how much it can affect mental health and I want not to undo any advancement. We also moved into our new rental, and I let Leah pick a kitten, her baby. Leah always carries the cat with her, so I hardly see it since we bought it. To aid Leah in her recovery process, we had to toss most of her old furnishings. She used to like the things I used to, but now she wants the minimum color. I was attempting to show her the Pinterest room of her dreams. It is still being worked on. She currently boasts a boyfriend as well. Out on the 4th, he invited her. He is age appropriate, and I have known the child since I grew up with his dad, so I know he comes from a decent home. Leah appears like she could be developing codependency on him, which worries me the only thing. He is on FaceTime with us if he is not at our house. She wants him to tag along every time we go out. This has been happening since he asked her out formally. As Maya moved out, I would say it's been like this. Yet I'm not very concerned as I believe it's only like this now since it's summer and a fresh relationship. She seemed at first to be happy for the occasion. My last post drew a lot of critical comments as I wasn't informing my kid all the specifics or moving quickly enough. Though I almost wanted not to share this, I want to start by noting that I know my children and they know me. Timing is something I respect personally. I wanted to be sure I had facts, not presumptions, before I spoke with my other children. I knew in my heart that I tried my best to make my daughter answerable for her acts. I wanted to arrange a meeting with the detective who questioned Maya to tell him everything. The detective informed me he investigated Maya but lacked sufficient proof when we met. It wasn't enough to accuse her, even with all I told him. So he could only accuse her of child endangerment for leaving a juvenile she was supposed to be supervising in a house with a documented sex offender. He soothed me though, and confirmed what I had thought. He also informed me Leah reportedly spent almost 2 hours being assaulted twice by 2 of the suspects. Maya was arrested as she never went upstairs to see Leah and showed no sympathy during questioning. He also mentioned that he has looked into several similar cases, but this case troubled him since so many onlookers realized something sinister may be occurring but did not act. He told me to bear that in mind. Everyone failed Leah, not only Maya. Before the sentencing, I visited with my son and his wife. More dissatisfied than offended was his attitude. Though he knew something was amiss, he assumed Maya wouldn't act purposefully. My son and daughter-in-law told me they always believed Leah made Maya jealous or threatened. When Leah removed her braces, my son observed that she started to grow into her appearance, drawing greater interest from Maya's friends. Leah was the nice sibling amongst the two. According to my daughter-in-law, she personally saw this during the bridesmaid dress fitting. Maya attacked Leah instead of complimenting her. Maya responded, "I know, that's why I have to humble her." When my daughter-in-law informed Leah that Leah would unlock so much potential once she saw her beauty and ignored her bullies. Though she considered it odd at the time, my daughter-in-law didn't give it much attention until recently. Maya blocked them as soon as I tossed her out too, and today they know why. The sentence was not as harsh as I'd anticipated. Leah admitted she first found it to be dull. Of course, the mothers and fathers of the offenders were the character witnesses. One mother reported that it was a terrible night and that we should stop aggravating additional damage. One dad claimed his kid had been mistreated at Leah's age and that Leah had to have set off something inside him. Leah found nothing impressive about this. She said she ignored them, but I sensed it bothered her. I was so very proud of Leah when she chose to create a video and read her victim impact statement. Leah didn't look at all four of the offenders even though they all said apologies to her before the court. She heard them and thought only one was really remorseful. The rest responded robotically. 2 of the offenders were sentenced to 10 years, however they might be released 6 years early. Because of his past offenses, the person who filmed it received 12 years. The prosecutor warned me he might be in there for 20+ years due to a different charge. Leah's friend Maya, who she most worries about, received 14 years. The judge noted that he should complete the whole term and not be paroled as he had past difficulties for something similar. Leah wanted them all to be 14 years, but she was good with their sentences. Should they leave early or should there be parole hearings, she will be informed. My son said Maya was present but she stayed far back and departed right away when the court adjourned. Leah was particularly disturbed by some of the families of the offenders trying to personally apologize to her and chat with her. Apart from that, she managed it really nicely. We started debriefing everything while we were driving back home, and I tried to explain the next steps. Leah informed me it was strange that one of the offenders called Maya friend when we arrived home as Maya would not be friends with someone like that. She stated this and my face went white. I realized it was time to tell her. I said, "I had been intending to tell you this. I'm not happy with your sister for several different reasons." Leah was still perplexed, so I clarified that Maya was arrested for leaving the house, not for throwing the party. Leah simply said, "Oh okay, not giving a damn about that." Then I answered, "He wasn't lying in front of the courts. Maya went behind your back that evening to attempt to set you two up. Maya was friends with your sister." I then witnessed the flash of insight. Leah first assumed I was lying, but as I continued to speak, it was as though she watched someone's heart break before her eyes. She interrupted me off and remarked, "I don't believe you. Maya would never hang around with someone that terrible. She might not have been best friends with him, but she did have some kind of relationship with him," I said. "Mom, if that's true, that's really bad," Leah said. "None knows how nasty he was to me all day. I had to sit in the courtroom listening to people claim he was a wonderful person although it is untrue. Why does nobody agree with that?" I started apologizing to her at this time, and she grabbed her phone to call Maya. Maya responded with a really happy, "Hello," and Leah went right to the point asking whether Maya had ever been friends with her offender. Maya admitted she was friends with him before anything happened, even though I really believed she would lie. Leah then inquired as to whether she was attempting to get her to date him. And Maya answered honestly and positively. Leah hung off on her before Maya could clarify herself. Leah began shaking rather severely while she was tapping on her phone, and I knew she was blocking Maya on everything. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes once she was done and asked, "Mom, why does she hate me so much? Whatever I did to her, she still hates me. I have been trying to be her buddy. Why?" Over the course of the day we shed tears together. To be honest, Leah told me the next day she had finished with Maya and wanted nothing to do with her for some time. She stated she felt more enraged than depressed after sleeping on it. She opened out to me and that she wrecked her senior year, hence Maya made her feel ashamed. Leah blamed herself for what happened by not being more cautious and not locking the door. Yet, to now discover that she did lock the door and that Maya had far more control of the circumstances than she led Leah to believe makes her very unhappy. Leah then informed me Maya promised she was quitting, but she had a drug issue with Adderall and medications she had agreed to keep secret. When I asked Leah when her drug addiction first started, she stated she was unaware. Nonetheless, she found her pilfering her concerta in April 2023. Maya then came clean on her drug problem. Leah also thinks Maya's dealer was among her attackers since he used to visit the house late at night while I was working. Leah suffers greatly since Maya traded her for more drugs and never quit as she had promised. Leah further related that her assailant claimed during the attack that if she refused to participate, they would harm Maya, which would make her feel worse since she knows Maya wouldn't do the same for her. Although it was a few weeks ago, that was the last time we truly discussed Maya. I know she is suffering greatly. I went crazy and let her get a cat for this reason. Maya has tried to get in touch with Leah many times utilizing text-free numbers even though she is not sure of our new address. Leah exhibits no curiosity at all. Maya has been taken in by my mother-in-law, with whom I have never gotten along, paying for her education and purchasing her a new automobile just to spite me. She is no longer with my parents. She shared it on Facebook, but I wish I were making this up. The dysfunctional aspect is that although my mother-in-law is aware of what happened to Leah and all Maya accomplished, she simply doesn't care. Using their dad as leverage, she called Leah to guilt trip her, saying, "Your dad would hate to see you fight and hold a grudge against your sister over a mistake." Maya believes Maya is equally a victim as Leah. I stopped talking to her at that point and advised Leah not to answer her going forward. Since my mother-in-law wants to discredit my parenting and harm her other granddaughter by funding Maya's life, I am quite near suing Leah civilly on her behalf. Though I'm so annoyed with the situation, my therapist believes that will not help Leah or me heal. I'm sorry. I'm not doing well and there isn't another ending except that I lost 3 individuals in 4 years. I am quite hopeless. Both of my girls and the love of my life vanished from me. I will never be the same. I still grieve the loss of my small daughter. I also blame myself for not seeing my other daughter in time as I think she is a profoundly defective, dangerous person. I worry about everyone she encounters in her adult years. My wife of 8 years had an affair and shattered me. Now I'm left picking up the pieces, trying to heal and be the best dad I can to our son. I, 31 am still rather devastated over all of this even now after divorce. Having turned in the final divorce decree, I am seated outside the courthouse. Last Wednesday, my cheating lousy wife, 30F, dropped by my office so I could have her sign the final papers. My brother and I manage a store, so we were busy, but I had her come to sign the last paperwork at the back. As I was working on some chores, she read it over. Then I saw she was at the last page staring at it, then at me. Not only peering, she seemed to be begging and had a tiny welling of tears. It was quite frustrating. I advised her not to engage in this garbage and to either sign or not. She opened her lips then closed them once again. Not to pull bullshit like this when she's dating and hooking with other people, I became enraged and instructed her to speak what she had to say. She has not expressed any want to mend our friendship. She signed the forms and left head down. We ended up talking in her car for a second after I had to hunt her down to ask about our stimulus money. She inquired about our son. He's not biologically mine, but I have been there for him since he was 4. Though I try to interact with him every morning, I informed her he doesn't really talk to me anymore. She only nodded and looked dejected. I gently informed her that I was allowing her one chance to speak her truth. She simply stared at me. Furious, I told her she never loved me first of all. She stated it wasn't true, tears running down her face. She wouldn't have considered cheating, I informed her, if she loved me really. Even when other ladies approached me, I had always been loyal. I always turned away as I knew my wife wouldn't enjoy it. I advised her to get in touch with me when she had my money. I wish I had known she didn't love me from the beginning. It would have saved time, effort, and suffering. It is killing me. The hearing scheduled to finish it all is tomorrow. I'm recuperating, rediscovering delight in things I used to enjoy, and loving exercise more. Though I can't seem to find it in me to truly talk to them or try for a date, I'm looking better, getting attention from women, and that's wonderful. Still, my heart longs for her. My heart still loves her. I wish I could take it out and bury it permanently. Though I know I have to go through these emotions and welcome this new life, I'm having trouble. The end of this procedure is surely bringing all these emotions to the forefront. Comments. You did what you were supposed to. You will need time to put this behind you. Her crocodile tears sent her on losing a home base to Monkey Branch. The greatest disrespect is cheating, and it never comes from a place of love. You're better off, time will help you move on. Thank you for your help. I am working on moving on. I have many I just wish ideas to shove aside and let go. OP. You adored someone she used to be. Today she is not that person. Though it is difficult, disconnecting takes time. If anything, I will use this time to heal and appreciate what I do today. It will make me a better person generally. You cannot simply switch off and on your emotions. Never give your morals or standards any concessions. Don't force yourself to start looking for another companion. Be selective and date when you are ready. Let alone offer my body to another woman. I am not looking to enter yet another relationship. The most I'm hurrying is trying to not feel anything for her. As you pointed out, it's a process. Sometimes, oh man, I do want to sacrifice my morals. I want to tell each parent of my son's soccer squad everything about the person she is and email blast all of them. I want to print flyers to plaster her preferred locations and publish it all over Instagram. But none of that is me. I know that person is not who I am. I'm just still hurting and really trying to mend. I greatly appreciate your nice comments and support. They really mean a lot. I understand that it seems so unjust and as if justice does not exist on our planet. Don't jump in the mud with the pigs. You'll get dirty too and be mistaken for a pig. My grandma often advised me. Never treat yourself less than that. While some individuals reject karma, indeed it is quite gradual but also meticulous. She will be revealed one day, or something will transpire to grant her the justice she so deserves. You only have to be loyal to yourself. Your children will also see it. They will know you as the one who did not devalue themselves. Just treat yourself politely. Update 1. Yesterday was that. Here I am today, single and most certainly in shock. Other than having this massive pit in my gut, I'm not sure how I should feel. She understood the timing of the hearing, but I find a Zoom call to the court to be just so impersonal. Of course, I realize, safety comes first. Still, it doesn't particularly feel real. It really hasn't really sunk me. I mean, I can acquire a copy of the signed document and declare myself to be divorced. A couple of my buddies want to know whether I want to go celebrate. They want to be there for me, they are lovely about it. They are not being nasty or resentful. And that feels great. I simply have not known how to approach this. I should be feeling free, yet maybe I should be crying once more. Oddly enough, I simply want to hear my wife's voice. Unfortunately, I no longer have a wife. Some stranger that sounds like her and wears her face. Though it's only a resigned kind of sensation, I can sense tears gathering. Here I am, simply me. Furthermore, my dog. I have very few friends, but they are the finest. I have a great and fantastic family. Thus, support is discussed. I merely feel empty, exhausted and drained. What should my next action be is unknown. Tell my son that it has happened over the phone. Say F it all, and go to Italy to begin exploring sites. Go back to Vegas with my old buddies for a desert recharging trip. I truly want to be laying here in silence, staring at the ceiling. Naturally though, life has to go on and so should I. I appreciate all of your support and ideas, especially book recommendations. I'm eager to at least start since I'm picking those up today. I never imagined myself in this place. Notes. Italy's timing is horrible, but whenever it becomes sensible, that has my enthusiastic vote. Vegas is a temporary prospect with friend events instead of the still skeletal and dreary casino resort life. Mountains and the weather are just beautiful. I left McCarran yesterday straight out. My friend, I find myself in the same boat. This afternoon at 3 o'clock I am signing paperwork. She departed and deserted our family on our 22nd wedding anniversary almost 2 years ago. I say every word you are using exactly. Simply said, I feel hollow and worn out by the struggle. Hang in there, friend, better things are just waiting for us. One breath at a time, one stride in front of the other, we simply have to be patient and gentle to ourselves. Recall this, we deserve better. Damn, I sense your words suffering. Regards, apologies. Update 2. The last post I produced was seen above the last time I blogged. Right now it's really upsetting me as I'm still kind of disoriented inside. Like me, my ex-wife, crazy to type it out, was off to work. At the same junction, we both stopped. She was turning right to ride on the freeway I had just left off, while I was going to turn left under the overpass. Like metal butterflies ripping up my insides, my heart and stomach sprang with the same familiar, exhilarating and lately terrible sensations. We made eye contact until the light changed, then each drove our separate directions. Both literally and metaphorically, I could not think of a more appropriate comparison for the state of affairs. Still feeling longing, grief, rage, disappointment, nausea, and a rainbow of other depression-inducing emotions, Here I am typing out my pain. I wish I could be indifferent for the love of God. I wish I could rip out, root and all this deep-seated affection. Her and her stupidity justifies nothing. Though it's exactly what I want not to feel, is still in love with her. Her scent, her warmth, the sensation of her hair brushing against my face and mixing with my beard, the feel of her soft skin against my bare chest, the rhythm of her heart against my arms when I held her in the dark, these are the sweetest dreams I have of her. Recently they have been most vivid. She left such an effect on me when it was so darn simple for her to demolish everything we had created together. Yes, I understand it is past. Indeed, I understand the sensation might never go away. Indeed, I understand that processing trauma will take time. I am tired of processing though, of feeling the hurt, of sobbing, of reminding myself that it is okay to not be okay. I miss experiencing even-keeled. Every day seems like I'm standing on a platform precariously atop a damned barrel. Some days it's all good. I got this, balance can be kept. I've been doing it for 8 months, therefore I should be used to this. Other days though, I feel as though the agony of betrayal never lets me find even a tiny respite. I trip off the platform since right now equilibrium is useless. We can rather clearly tell the kind of day this one is. Usually, it becomes worse before it improves. I despise platitudes. Gang. Update 3, made the 3-week mark, the final post above. I watched our son's middle school soccer game yesterday and was so happy to see him. How much he has changed and how big he is. He's so darn tall, his voice is cracking, and it's weird not to have personally seen it. Feeling like I was being watched from the bleachers, I didn't see my ex-wife until practically half hour. I turned and our gazes met squarely. Her parents were seated with her. They lost the game, sadly, but the team rocked it still. I waited for the squad to pass over the bleachers as people filed off them. I nodded, using their first names, but her parents passed past if I hadn't uttered a word. I laughed and let the throng pass. Not over the phone or via text, it was great to hug my kid and chat with him personally when I waited for him at the team exit. The thrill of seeing each other once more permeated every moment. At last, my ex came up to tell our son loving words. Since I depend on her for those specifics, I asked her when the next game is scheduled. Our chat was clinical. We know we're not decent and most certainly aren't buddies. After instructing her not to sit next to me at the last game, I made that plain. Let's go, she tells our son, and he gives me a long embrace. I love him, I tell him. Though difficult, I do let go. I turn and go in the other way from my car, not looking at her or bidding farewell. The one I listened to and loved for almost a decade wants to run over and grab her, kiss those lips, hug her body in my arms, and feel her warmth and heartbeat, the one I feel slightly betrayed by my heart because of. I have to aggressively control it. Not until I come home and sit in silence to reflect on everything will there be tears. Even then though, they are few. I'm still figuring out these emotions. I still experienced additional wonderful dreams of hers till this morning. Once more, I feel as if I am fighting my own body and my own thoughts. I'm doing everything I can. I work out practically every day and eat clean with perhaps 1 or 2 cheat meals a week. I have poured myself into the business of my brother and find it to be flourishing. To be very honest, we never had this many staff members. It's fantastic. I am studying about stocks and investing, reading more, and certifying myself for IT jobs. Most of all, Jack, my corgi, is my other little kid and always wants to play. Filling the emptiness is odd. It certainly seems like a vast gaping void inside me. Being a father and a husband was great fun. As Hurricane Harvey approached Texas, we nearly decided to have another kid. In our house we were safe, dry, and not at all impacted. Though by November we knew she was pregnant, there were plenty of fun, crazy, and somewhat exotic events. Money, space, and our present circumstances finally led us both to agree that we should stop the pregnancy and not have another kid. I wonder if things would be different, whether we would be at this place now, and if she would have at another person. This has started me thinking back. Yes, I know the what-if game is never a nice place to be, never a good thing to linger on, but lately it's just been emerging more and more in my mind, let alone the dreams, like I had last night of my beautiful wife and what could have been our little girl or our second little boy. It makes me miss my son even more, and it irritates me that she would not let me adopt him. She said that I could only after all this garbage had transpired. I apologize for the protracted post. I simply find myself repeating and ranting last night in my head. It hasn't even been a year since she broke off our relationship. I know it's still early and quite fresh following the divorce. I suppose all I can say is that today I'm not feeling it. It's almost 10 a.m. I haven't gotten out of bed. That she still affects me and how I feel every time I see her bothers me. Update 4. Hey everyone. At last I have developed an apathetic attitude. Other than that I'm feeling happier more consistently, I'm not really sure what to say. Right now I'm working out on a schedule. Cooking more, and experimenting. I have been picking up writing once more and presently work on a short story. To see the Phoenix Suns defeat the Nuggets, I flew to Denver. I'm about to head to Oregon to visit a cousin, do some hiking, and try tubing in a new place. Though, my bond with my son is different. I got in touch, he seems really busy. Though man, this is what it feels like to have a full-on teenage son. I'm doing my best to be understanding. Lunch and meals here and there, I suppose I will grab what I can. Simply said, I miss being with him consistently. I now go on dates with someone. She manages her own companies, is just fantastic, independent, intelligent, strong, mature, runs slow here. She is aware of my circumstances and both of us are cautious not to leap in too quickly. Still, it's amazing. Our interests are somewhat similar, we have easy communication and our goals are rather apparent. Even now, when we are simply lounging about, it is just calm. I am attempting to keep myself from developing any negative habits or tendencies. Simply said, it is fantastic to feel good once more. She asked yesterday, what will happen if, and when another man gets involved with my son? To be honest, I'm not sure. If he doesn't reach out, then it's just me having to sit back and hope for the best for him. I will be there for him is all I dare think or say. In this I have no legal clout or rights. Fortunately, I have seen her face to her face and I truly don't feel anything for my ex. Though I'm trying to take it day by day and hope I keep recovering and finding happiness more and more, whatever that means, that my son and I can have a better relationship and that I not muck this up with this amazing woman. I appreciate your support, counsel, book recommendations and encouragement all around. That was therefore fleeting, tragically. The incredible woman was disturbed by my April divorce and feels that I'm not over her since I call our son asterisk our son asterisk. I just mention him in reference to co-parenting and the fact that I have to go through her for anything pertaining to him. I have a son. She's also saying she still has to recuperate from a breakup she went through 3 months ago with a guy she loved. I could see the healing, but I couldn't picture involving someone new with my son at this age. November is his 14th birthday, and it's *****ing strange when others tell me what I feel and get wrong. She also objects to being a stepmother. I never even brought up her young 4-year-old daughter. Once more, I am living that part of my life apart from this present one. Why is this troubling to me? Though in my past relationship I did nothing illegal, I feel like I'm marked. It's held against me after being honest with each other and such, just because I'm divorced and have a much older son who would most certainly never be part of the relationship. Feels quite unjust. If I tell people straight up about my circumstances, I'm accused of not being over my ex. I'm not being real about things if I hold that back and say nothing. Update 5. Some have wondered how this all started and how I got up where I am today, hence I attempted publishing this earlier as an explanation of what went down when things initially started. Though recent, this began in July of last year. Far from all this, I am appreciative of all the guidance, encouragement and kicks in the *** from those who have gone through it and are helping. Alright, so far as things stand, July 2020 started as if everything was going downward. June turned out fantastic. Together with our son and his friend, we had taken a brief trip. We had fun together and the intimacy was amazing. They hung out. July arrived and we were having problems, spats over dumb small things. She showed no desire in closeness. Her day would be of interest to me, but she exhibited no curiosity about me. Long bathroom stays and baths all the damn time, yet she wanted to gripe about not spending time with us. July passed like this. August started to get more tense. She even tried to present me with lingerie and stated it would be for my birthday, like if everything was normal. My birthday arrives, she gets me several LPs but nothing particularly noteworthy. I had a tough day at work. She did too apparently, and we ended up cooking and hanging around together. I reasoned, it's a work day and it's whatever. She seems not truly present but delivers intimacy. We had several major arguments in September at last, one of which she begged to have some alone time. Though this was suspicious, I became insane as I felt our marriage was falling apart. As correct as me. Taking the dogs, I headed to spend the evening with my brother and his family. I returned home early in the afternoon the following day. I never stopped her from hanging out with her friends. She had mentioned she wanted to go before I arrived. I arrived home at about 12 o'clock. At 6 or 7 she arrived home. Happy to see her, I told her when I saw her. She said the month was awful and that week was especially so. She was unpleasant, snarky, straightforward, nasty, not kissing me. I kept urging her to tell me what was going on. I wanted us to be fine. I sensed things were off. Now a quite good friend, an acquaintance, expressed concern after seeing me at work. I told him I loved my wife very much. We had been married for 1.5 at this point and had been together for 8.5 years, yet I had no idea what to do. He advised marriage therapy and advised reading *The 5 Love Languages* and another book I cannot remember right now. After reading the book right away, I knew I had been giving work too much top priority. Our company is owned by my brother and me. Since COVID, we have been overrun as business has been flourishing. I never stopped trying to love her or be close, both physically and in talks, though even then. She had vanished though. I got home that same day and she was unwell. I looked after hers. As she was getting dressed the next morning, I gently and affectionately requested whether we might talk before she left. Having read the book all night before, I told her everything I had discovered. Although I said I had been lazy, I loved her and advised us to visit marriage counseling to try to mend things because we had our son and loved one another. She broke down crying and kept repeating I was going to hate her, hence anything I said must have set off her. She finally acknowledged that she had cheated on me last weekend when she was with her friends after being urged to be straight up with me. Though I was stunned and totally blown away, I loved my son, marriage and wife. Like a fool, I assured her everything was good, I could forgive her, but she had to come clean on everything. She then clammed up. No names, no information. Basically, she had been having an emotional affair until that day in September and had been chatting to the other man since July. How could I find her credible? I did not. I told her she had parodied our marriage and our vows. It was Thursday. She rejected and offered very little justification when I tried to have a conversation with her that evening. She said she had told the other guy she had confessed to me, but she never consented to discuss things. Friday comes around the same way. I'm dry heaving, haven't slept, feel eerie, furious, and damaged within. When Saturday finally arrived, my brother advised me to go home and go out what was happening after seeing the damage I was causing. She got up, started working out, and I stayed a mess all the while. I phoned my father, who had been the cheater in his marriage, but my mother and he sorted things out. Their marriage has been wonderful for 38 years now. I asked him for his opinion. He said, she understood exactly what she was doing. It's not a mistake. She has to decide. If she doesn't, that tells you all you need to know. Though a wreck, I got myself together. I made sure our son was looked after and tidied the house. I then descended to our apartment gym and instructed her to come see me after she finished. She showed up half an hour later, and I gently reminded her that she had to decide between our family and marriage or the other guy. All I got was, I don't know, and she requested for some time. I agreed on the stipulation that she not see or contact him. She agreed and headed for a 2-hour run. On an app, I could see her whereabouts. She returned, at last saw I had cleaned the place and started to cry. What she had decided, I asked her. Once more it was a profusion of I don't know. She muttered, it's over, at last as I pushed her. Okay, I answered. I grabbed a duffel bag, stuffed some clothes inside, and she started crying since I was truly leaving. I was crying too. My son is distracted with computer games, so he's good when I kiss him and tell him I'm going to spend a short time at his uncle's. I bail. I tell her I'll be back in the morning for my stuff. When I arrive at about 6 a.m. the next morning, I take trash bags right away and head straight into our bedroom, bathroom and closet to begin packing everything I own into them. Tears flowing, she sits up in bed staring at me. She probes me about what I'm doing and I tell her she made her choice. She begins to wail. Though it breaks my heart, my wife is also wanted once more. Like a fool, I lie in bed with her, embrace her and kiss her for half an hour. She has to come clean. I assure her it doesn't have to be this way. Silence. Furious, I yelled at her that all of this was useless. I pack and inform her my father and brother are at a cafe 5 minutes away, waiting for my call to assist with the heavy stuff. It is 11 a.m. by now, and I have bagged everything. She wants us to tell our son what? We go wake him and give him a farce of an explanation for poor communication. She says she would rather not see my family. She is embarrassed, hence I do not blame her. She brings our son shopping, and I can tell he's a little disoriented and bewildered. My dad and brother answer when I call. We took my 3 TVs and all the gadgets I had acquired to make our house smart. Naturally, I left my son all his great stuff. I love him and none of this is his fault. She texts me not to go and to wait for her and our son before I head off. I'm waiting. She finds the place looking as though it had been looted. She advises me not to go and notes that our son, enraged, knocked over a display and expressed desire we could still be a family. I give her a look that says nothing nice, and then I tell her naturally he does. I want to, but what the devil is she looking for? Once more with the I have no idea. I say remaining is pointless for me. She should notify her parents as, should they discover it from our kid, they would be enraged. The first week of October arrives next week. I attempt to keep our son on a routine. Some mornings I have to be at work early, so I show up for him, drive him to school, and make breakfast. On other mornings I take him to see his grandparents. I load everything on her parents when they inquire about what's going on. She is sticking to her foolishness even though I tell them we should mend things. I'm not clear. Having learned to love and respect one another, her dad is angry and depressed for me. She is texting me about how she hates herself and finds it hard to believe she accomplished all this. She is still chatting to the other man all through. She even inquires as to if we may get back together. I tell her she knows what she has to do if she wants me back. During the week, I pick up my son after practice and head home. I love him, thus I consent when he wants to show me something. We spent 1 hour in his room. She's a wreck when I walk out to the living room. She approaches me closely and wants me to sit down with her, encircling me with arms. I almost give in, but I get up and tell her I'm not doing this if she's still chatting to or involved with this man. She claims she cut it off, hence I sit down and hug her. We even gently kiss and I touch her. The phone then rings, a new ringtone, and I know she is panicking inside. From her end he has been phoning all day. I ask her to show me she stopped it and stare her in the eyes. She starts to cry and objects. She understands what she has to do if she wants me. I remind her once more. I'm still returning throughout the week to pick up my son from school and even cooking meals to store in the refrigerator. She is not doing laundry. I have to push myself not to do it for her. But I find my son smells from not washing and his blankets are dirty. Her neglect of him calls for me to chastise her. Her friends wanted to take her to the Renaissance Fair that weekend, and I find it amazing how she is acting as if everything is good. She asks whether I might spend a few hours watching our son. I want time with him, therefore I say yes, but even I know I'm not really ready for that. I agree otherwise as well. 4 additional lads walk out and get in my car when I show up after work to fetch him up from his friend's house, probably a sleepover. Not at him, but at her, I am enraged. She understands from my call that I would be leaving should she not return. She is behaving all piffy about it and it takes 3 hours to return. She has the arrogance to argue that spending her birthday with pals shouldn't cause her guilt. She took advantage, and this is never going to happen again. She should feel horrible given all that is going on. Weeping, she asks, what, am I only supposed to be a mother? I don't say anything about that either, but god damn it, yes, you picked this before I even entered the scene. We chat a little longer, and she even invites me to stay, to sleep in the same bed and be close. I turn it down and head off. My son strikes me as depressed. Even though it's taxing both financially and emotionally, I keep seeing him since now I'm just 45 minutes away. Her parents just know what I have told them since she is avoiding them too. This is October 25th, the birthday of my ex. Things have been strange. I am shamefully performing the pick-me dance. Monday here, and I'm sending nice video greetings, but she seems apathetic about it. I start with a little present, working my way up, then I go in the morning to look after our son, drive him to school, and then I do what I always do on her birthday week. I cleaned off a picture of the 3 of us at a pumpkin patch when we first got acquainted. It's a lovely image. I developed this itching inside me just before leaving. Though I had no idea what set off me, I started looking about. Opening a fresh shoebox I discovered a new vibrator, a new dildo, and new butt plugs within. When I left I had tossed every toy we owned. She preserved the container as well, and the postmarks date the day I left. Even a gift note including the man's name. Then I found a note tucked within the shoebox. It came from a woman, but her last name matched that of the AP's other gift note. Opening it, I came upon a picture of a family. 2 small boys, a baby, a dog, a guy and a lady. Along with it was a letter informing my ex that she might retain AP but had wrecked her marriage. The woman clarified that she had learned about him from the toys he had sent. I snapped pictures and went right to her parents to show what I had discovered. Get a lawyer, get all my ducks in a row, and then file, her dad advised me, same counsel many of you had given me. That same day I did that. When it arrived a few days later, I handed her the paperwork. We sat on it for months. We attended soccer matches, had a few private evenings, but I wouldn't dare sleep with her even though the chance presented itself. At one soccer game, she eventually observed that I wasn't really at my best. I prodded till she said she was seeing someone. That following week, I turned in every file. We seem caught up right now. Update 6. I returned to the same vacation location I visited last summer in order to snowboard. Just me out here, this was my first true adventure. All wholly mine. I never made the trip to serve as a kind of diversion or anything else. I visited the slopes 10 years ago and performed rather well. I can't describe how emotionally satisfying it is to be without the drag of my ex-wife, who hated everything outdoors, let alone snow or cold. Snowboarding has always made me happy. I was thumbing my ring finger trying to spin the long-gone ring as I strolled throughout the city. Though we had been separated almost 2 years ago, seeing couples engage in Valentine's Day activities somewhat weighs on my heart. It's strange. I suppose I miss having the ring there, especially what the ring ought to have symbolized. Ultimately, though with my ex, it was only a lump of metal and a false promise. I guess I'm simply reflecting, but I can't describe how quite dreamy this has been. After hurting so terribly, the happiness, enthusiasm, laughing and foolishness that have permeated my life seem amazing. Hell, I'm sore and in pain beyond what I can recall from the last time I went snowboarding, but this ache is one I have totally missed. For those of you who are struggling, however, cliched as it seems, it does indeed get better with time. Spend some time grieving and hurting, then go forward. Improve yourself for yourself. I appreciate everyone being there and listening. Update 7. The divorce occurred 2 years ago. This is the month the divorce was finalized. As the title suggests, the dreams are resurfacing. Strange seems to be the situation. Dreaming, we find ourselves at a house I have never seen before. She begs me to accompany her upstairs. We both are nude. We arrive upstairs to what looks to be our room, and she looks me up and down, giving me that smile I remember and liked, then says, "Hi." I have nowhere to start. She walks up, puts her hands in mine, and all I can say back is, "Hi." She presses her body into mine and I encircle her in my arms. Her beautiful skin and warmth really speak to me. She smells her shampoo even now. Actually, I'm pleased my dog woke me up seconds later. This is my second dream for this month. Not since last November, not seen my ex in months. Emotion such things is strange. More of a what the heck kind of emotion. One reason all of this is happening could be my recent house building on my own. I guess I'm just sort of airing out my mind. Today feels odd. My warmest wishes go out to those of you hurting. Update 8. I met with my son yesterday in great anticipation. Since his last birthday, I had not heard anything significant from him. It has been killing me. Again though, I understand how teenagers behave and I'm sure he has a lot on his plate with his middle school to high school change. His mother's obnoxious boyfriend is also a factor. To be honest, when he at last picked up the phone, I got rather happy. Our chat was nice. It took a moment of me telling him what I'd been up to, building a house, our corgi getting older, and as always, our love of video games, to pull him out of his shell. High ranking in Rocket League, he has been invited to a competition including pros scheduled for Twitch broadcast. I really am thrilled for him. We should keep chatting. He promises to email me the link. From his now totally different voice, I take it as a little triumph that he still thinks of me as dad. I am flattered and happy. My heart started feeling it once more a few hours after our afterglow conversation. It was more of a dull ache, just aching deep down within me. It hurt and bothered me enough to cause me to hardly sleep last night. Seeing my attitude, my father asked what was bothering me. I first found it difficult to actually put it into words, but the second time he asked, it came naturally. The weight and suffering still exist even if I'm completely happy when I have my son and can still be a part of his life in any manner he chooses. It's enough to keep my head spinning over why. At this point, I realize the cause has no bearing on anything or would provide comfort. Everything is done and accomplished, however even 2 years down the road it is still fresh and painful. My pride in being my son's dad and my emotions of love and admiration for him are so entwined with the love I had for my ex, which now simply acts as a painful reminder every time I see him. Though I can't say I know what you're feeling, coming from this side of your situation, you may need to ask yourself if the pain and suffering are worth it for your mental health and general well-being. My father, a cheater in his own time but someone who makes amends and keeps on doing so, told me. Though you love him with all your being and the time you spend brings enormous delight, it follows days of rehabilitation for you. I am not advising you to give up on him as, if it were me trying to be there for you, I would never stop. Perhaps you should nonetheless, let go of everything. You gave all you have. I haven't seen you this joyful in a long time. Still, I can see the toll it takes on you. Your emotions divided between your love for your son and the anguish you obviously still have from how you were deceived. I understand he's acting as a father, seeing obvious suffering on my face while his son battles. He would never want it lastingly. Given the lengths of his military training, which trained him to detach himself and view events from several angles, I take it as his attempt to provide wise guidance. He does not intend to just vanish from my son's life, I'm sure. Maybe he only wants me to keep outside of it all. Perhaps he only wants to spare me the suffering still afflicting my heart. Just letting my ideas float about. My best wishes extend to everyone suffering right now. Particularly to those in healing, remain strong and keep cheerful. Comments. OP, your first response and attitude to him calling were exactly perfect. For a teen especially, this is all quite challenging ground to walk. Talk not of his mother, her partner, or their domestic situation. Create an oasis out of yourself and your relationship with your son. Be in his life a non-judging lighthouse. Should the matter come up, avoid pledging yourself to a position. Still keep your distance and objectivity. Find out his short-term bucket list. Perhaps you two might handle a few of those jointly. Luck. I agree absolutely and thank you. Out of our conversations, I make sure to keep any reference to his home situation or anything about his mother away. I concentrate on talking about just him and me and avoid passing opinions. Though it feels like negotiating in the dark, I am trying to assist him with a list. That's the intensity of my affection. I won't give up on him. Thank you for the guidance. I will keep making sure that what we publish is a refuge. I'm 30F, wed to Brian, 32M, a really great man. At least until lately, our 7 years together have been peaceful. We have been married for 5 and life has been lovely. My family has always been somewhat complicated. When I was 10 years old, my parents split. My mother fled and since then we have not spoken at all. When I was 15, my dad, 55M, drew Diane, 50F. She entered the family with her 28F daughter Melissa. Mostly since Melissa was constantly envious of me, we were never close. She simply made matters worse as she disliked my wonderful relationship with my dad, who has always preferred me. Melissa has always shown a little entitlement and spoiling. Diane cuddles her. She has always sided with Melissa no matter how often there has been dispute or argument. Although my dad attempts to remain impartial, it is clear he is closer to me and has caused many issues over the years. Melissa appears to be carrying this chip on her shoulder on the way our dad treats us differently. To complicate matters, Diane and my dad's son Peter, 14M, is my half-brother. Though the family relationships are equally complex, he is a wonderful child. Though Melissa is an adult now and should be able to manage things better, her dad loves him too and Melissa always feels that she has been pushed to the side. Still, I am a successful business owner, which has simply accentuated the distance separating Melissa from me. She has always been jealous of my connection with our dad and my job. She is a low-level marketing assistant who regularly laments how unfair life is, how she does not have the same chances, etc. I have tried to be encouraging, but it is difficult when she is constantly negative and seeks means of dragging me down. She recently began dating James, 35M, a decent-looking man, but now I'm doubting everything. Even from our early years, Melissa and I never truly got along. Though I suppose it's not unusual for step-siblings to experience some conflict, ours felt to be on a different level. Melissa obviously objected to me from the beginning because of the relationship I had with our dad. She always considered me as competition, hence it was aggravating as I actually wanted a sisterly relationship with her. But it became abundantly evident over time that this was not going to happen. The favoritism of my dad proved unhelpful. He has never hesitated to share with anyone who would listen. He has always been pleased with my successes. Melissa, on the other hand, seemed to be more of a letdown in his eyes, which widened our gulf. Every time something went wrong in her life, she would find a way to point the finger at me or say I had it simpler since our dad loved me more. To be very honest, it was draining. And Diane? No matter what, Melissa's constant cheerleader has been her. Diane would defend Melissa even if she obviously made mistakes. Diane and my dad have had a lot of conflict as well, but he has never been one to squarely face it. To my annoyance, he simply aims to maintain peace, which sometimes means allowing things to lapse. Melissa's jealousy evolved over years into something more poisonous. She usually attempts to minimize my achievements as she has never been happy about any of them. She hardly noticed it when I married Brian and focused entirely on how unfair it was and how alone she was. She laughed at my company when I first started it, stating I only got where I am due to our dad's support. She seems unable to accept my success or happiness, which makes any type of meaningful connection unattainable for us. Notwithstanding all this, I have attempted to keep the peace. I try to include her in activities, hoping it would strengthen our relationship. I do not go out of my way to rub her triumphs in her face. Still, it's never enough. She finds a means to turn whatever I do into something negative no matter what. Since I desire things could be different, it's draining and truly upsetting. My battle with infertility has been among the most agonizing events in my life. Brian and I resolved 3 years ago that we were ready to begin a family. Though our enthusiasm and optimism were high, things didn't go as expected. We visited a reproductive doctor following a year of trying without success, and there we received the news that I have a disorder severely impairing spontaneous conception. Nothing worked, medications, therapies, even IVF that we tried. Every failed effort felt like a kick to the belly and severely affected both of us emotionally. Particularly since we had always imagined a large family, we were heartbroken. Our relationship has suffered much from it. There were times when I felt totally hopeless and the tension and disappointment were intolerable. Melissa's family is among those who know about our hardships. They were all really encouraging. Though he has never been very good with emotional matters, my dad attempted to be there for me in his own manner. Diane offered to assist with all we needed and was more involved. Melissa first appeared to be empathetic, but that was fleeting. She began making tiny digs and remarks with great depth not long ago. She once asked me casually how fortunate I was to be able to concentrate on my profession free from child responsibility. Especially from someone who understood how much I wanted to be a mother. It burned so badly. She seemed to be enjoying my suffering, which more than I could express hurts. Dealing with infertility is difficult enough without someone in your own family rubbing slaves in the wound. Almost as if she were mocking me, Melissa would also mention her own aspirations for children one day. She would discuss how simple she would find it when the time came. How she would have no trouble getting pregnant, and how she was in no hurry as she had all the time in the world. Knowing what I was going through, I couldn't understand why she would say such things. Which were terrible. To be honest, Melissa has always been rather the drama queen. She is single, a low-level marketing assistant, and she regularly grumbles about how her life has not turned out the way she intended. She has always been the kind of person that seeks attention, even if it means blatantly falsifying stories or exaggerating to get it. I can't count the times she has pretended to be unwell. Only the next day when something exciting comes up she suddenly recovers. She recently began seeing James, 35M, and initially I thought it would be great for her. Exactly what Melissa needs: kind, successful, grounded. He seemed to be a decent man. But as the relationship developed, I began to see some warning signals. Melissa has been pushing James to relocate more quickly than he is comfortable with. First of all, given her past of wanting things for the wrong reasons, her discussion of marriage and children after just a few months of dating seems a tad hurried. Melissa has always had a great need to stay up with me, more like to surpass me. She seems to be unhappy only until she feels as though she is one-upping me in some form. Whether it's with our professions, our relationships, or now considering a family, I have seen it time and time again. It's draining. At one point I'm not sure what more I could do to maintain calm. She has also been known to embellish events seeking compassion. She would make up stories about how harsh her professors were or pretend to have injuries to get out of gym class when she was younger. It's always something, and today it looks like that behavior has persisted into her adult life. She talks endlessly about how demanding her work is, how she feels underappreciated, and how everyone is out to get her. Particularly when you know someone is not being really honest, it can be difficult to sympathize with someone who is constantly acting the victim. James strikes me as a fine man, but I worry about him becoming sucked into Melissa's web. Unlike us, he doesn't know her, hence I worry he could not see the warning signals until it's too late. Still, I'm not very inclined to meddle at the same time. I simply hope things don't spiral out of hand for Melissa's sake as much as for his. Imagine yourself last weekend. Fast forward. Celebrating our 5th wedding anniversary, Brian and I also had an opportunity to let others know my company is growing. We agreed to have a large dinner party inviting close relatives, friends, and some business contacts. Particularly considering all Brian and I have gone through lately, I wanted tonight to be memorable. I spent weeks organizing every element, selecting the ideal cuisine, contracting a professional catering company, and even installing some subdued CCTV cameras for security needs. We just had a couple break-ins in the area, hence I wanted not to take any chances. Everything was supposed to be flawless, and I was eager to tell everyone we know our great news. My parents, Diane, Melissa, Peter, and a handful of our closest friends and business colleagues were on the guest list. Given our past, I was a little dubious about inviting Melissa, but I decided it was the proper thing to do. Moreover, I considered perhaps this would be a chance for us to at last get along, even for one evening. The day the party was scheduled arrived, and I wanted things to go without a hitch so everyone might enjoy themselves. Together, Brian and I checked to ensure every element was flawless. The caterers came early, and we laid a lovely table including candles and flowers. I even bought some pricey wine knowing our visitors would enjoy it. Everyone arriving felt as though all the effort had paid off. Starting with champagne and appetizers, we kicked things off and generally everyone seemed to be having fun. Melissa was also being quite friendly, which I interpreted as encouraging. Thinking perhaps, just maybe, things were looking good, I began to unwind and really appreciate the evening. Until dessert, everything was running perfectly. The caterers presented a beautiful cake, and we were about to make our major business expansion news when Melissa abruptly got up. She blurted out that she had some news of her own instead of the toast or anything I had assumed she would bring. Glancing around the room with this haughtiness, she declared, "I'm pregnant, 3 months along. I pledge you could have heard a pin drop." Everyone, including her boyfriend James, who seemed totally blindsided, was shocked. He glanced at her as though he cannot believe what he was hearing. The range of feelings I experienced at that moment, shock, hurt, anger, all of which struck me simultaneously is difficult for me to even start to explain. Though I have always wanted to make that kind of announcement myself, given all Brian and I have gone through with infertility, I realized that time might never happen. And here was Melissa, grabbing our evening to deliver her bombshell, knowing of my difficulties. Some of our visitors had pitying stares, and that made me wish to vanish. Still, I kept my cool rather than setting out a scene. Though I was dying within, I smiled broadly and complimented her. Although Brian's hand under the table allowed me to relax, I knew he was equally unhappy as I was. Originally scheduled this evening to honor our successes, today it became a celebration of Melissa's pregnancy. I said my congrats, then excused myself and vanished to the bathroom to cool off. I needed 1 minute to collect my ideas and stop the tears from flowing. She stole it entirely from us. It was meant to be our night. Given what we have gone through, I found it incomprehensible why she would act so carelessly. Still, this was Melissa, always seeking to be the center of attention, regardless of cost. Brian and I were still contemplating what had transpired early the next morning. We tried to concentrate on the positives, that is, the nice comments from our friends and the way the business news had been received. But it was difficult to move past the hurt and irritation. Though I hadn't expected to hear from Melissa very soon, there was a loud bang at the door as we were seated for breakfast. When I opened it, Melissa was standing there glaringly angry. Hurrying into the living room, she passed me without waiting. She started a frenzy before I could ask what was going on, charging me for spiking the food at the party to make her sick. She insisted she had been throwing up all night and morning and felt I had done something out of jealousy over her pregnancy. I was totally surprised. Spiking the food? What I was listening to astounded me. She was told that was absurd, that we had professionally catered meals, and that there was no way anything could have been changed. She wouldn't pay attention though. She said that I had to have done something and insisted on seeing the party CCTV footage to clear my name. Melissa was not having it when Brian entered the room trying to cool her down. She was yelling, screaming all kinds of crazy charges, and really I had no idea what to say. That she would even consider me capable of something so sinister infuriated and wounded me. The whole matter is becoming rapidly more dangerous. Should I fail to present Melissa the tape right then and there, Melissa threatened to call the police and press charges. She was behaving totally illogically, and I had no idea what to do. Though another part of me wanted to show her the film merely to shut her down and establish I had done nothing wrong, part of me wanted to throw her out of the house. She wasn't having it when Brian tried to reason with her, saying that perhaps she was simply suffering morning sickness. Nothing we said would make her change her mind. She was sure I had done anything to compromise her pregnancy. Just wanted it to stop. I felt as though I was in some kind of twisted dream. A few more minutes of yelling and accusations later, I at last consented to show her the CCTV film. I thought that was the only approach to persuade her to cool off and leave our peace intact. I called up the recordings from the previous evening and Brian and I guided her to the room housing the film. I kept looking at Melissa as we watched the video, expecting for her to see how ludicrous her charges were. The film captured everything: guests arriving, supper being presented and everyone having fun. Nothing out of the usual, no odd behavior, and most definitely no proof I had touched the food. Melissa doubled down nevertheless, instead of retreating. She began dissecting every minute detail in the video, alleging that certain attendees appeared uneasy or that perhaps the caterers had done at my request was wrong. She was clearly not going to let this go. She was grabbing at straws. She then turned to me out of nowhere and declared, if I didn't confess to what I'd done, she would take this to the next level. She was discussing urgent charges, visiting law enforcement and even suing me for what she claimed to have been an attempt to damage her unborn child. Never had I seen her like this before. So enraged, so resolved to have me the villain in her narrative. When Brian tried to step in once more, implying that Melissa might be simply overwhelmed with all that was happening in her life, she was not having it. She was dead focused on having me pay for something I had not even done. I didn't understand why she seemed to be on a mission to ruin me. I became stuck. She would assume I was hiding something if I hadn't shown her the footage, but even with it, she wasn't happy. I had no idea what else I could do to prove my innocence, and the idea of her dragging this out in front of courts or the police horrified me. I simply wanted the whole thing to stop. I was totally lost. I'm thus left wondering, Reddit, how I should address this. Should I keep trying to reason with Melissa, or should I enable her to forward with her threats and handle the consequences? All of this baffles and hurts me greatly. I have no idea what to do. Update 1. Hey Reddit, thanks for the guidance and encouragement. Things have turned wild, and I have to tell what happened next. I chose to attentively check the CCTV footage following Melissa's tantrum to be sure I had not missed anything. Though I expected nothing, I was driven to clear my name and put this entire disaster behind me. Something struck my eye as I was viewing the footage. James, Melissa's boyfriend, stood close to the drink table during the party. It was delicate, but when Melissa turned away, I saw him slide something into her drink. What the fuck was happening? Several times I watched the video to be sure I wasn't seeing things, but it was obvious. James had clearly placed something in her drink. I started to shock. What had he done? Explain why. Though I knew I had to face him about it, I also realized this would cause even more upheaval. I requested James to visit when I phoned him. Though he sounded tense, he agreed. I wasted no time when he got here. Showing him the video, I insisted on an explanation. At first he tried to deny it. But when he realized there was no going around it, he finally admitted. James owned up to having tainted Melissa's drink with Plan B. She had been pressuring him to have a baby, he said, and he wasn't ready for that kind of dedication. Melissa reportedly had been lying to him about using birth control and he freaked out upon learning of it. In a flash of fear, he dropped the pill into her drink, trying to stop the pregnancy without facing her squarely. I said nothing at all. Her boyfriend drugged her to stop her from becoming pregnant. For actual? James confessed, and I had no idea what to do going forward. Furious, outraged, and even a little afraid of what this would imply for all the people involved. Though I knew it would destroy Melissa, I realized I couldn't keep this to myself. She deserved the truth. I urged Melissa to come over when I phoned her. She was still furious when she got there, most likely anticipating another argument about the meal. But her face went white when I told her what James had done. She first just stared shocked at me without saying anything. She first tried to dispute it, claiming I must have somehow edited the recording, when I showed her the video. But the data was clearly there, and finally she had to confront reality. She moved from denial to rage when it sank her at last. She began yelling at James, calling him every name found in a book. She was tossing stuff and blaming him for destroying her life, so it was a full-fledged tantrum. Then in the middle of her tirade, she blurted out something even more startling. She acknowledged her lying about her pregnancy. Fearful James was about to leave, she claimed she made up the pregnancy to try to trap him back into her house. She reasoned that he would have to commit totally if he thought she was expecting his child. I stood absolutely stunned. Here I was believing she was really pregnant and that she had told me at my party out of some sick craving for attention, but it was all a lie, a hopeless, pitiful attempt to control James. And now her lie had exploded in front of her in the worst conceivable manner. Then Melissa turned on me and started accusing me of destroying everything. She said she could have maintained the lie and things would have been better if I hadn't shown her the video. It still astounded me. Even after all she had done, she was still working to twist events to make me the bad guy. My dad and Diane arrived in the thick of this turmoil as if things couldn't get bad. Melissa apparently had called them on her way over, screaming about how I was out to get her, so they came over to cool things up. Still, they strolled in exactly as Melissa was heading off on James. Things were anarchy. Diane launched Melissa's defense right away, asking what I had done to irritate her daughter. Diane would not hear me trying to explain everything. James spiking the drink. Melissa lying about the pregnancy. Saying I had always been jealous and was only searching for a means to destroy Melissa's life. She accused me of setting her up. My dad, on the other hand, first said nothing. After seeing the tape and listening to James, he turned to Melissa with an expression I had never seen before. Not even does disappointment start to cover it. She had done, lying about something as significant as a pregnancy, controlling everyone around her, and then turning on me for revealing the truth, something he couldn't believe. My dad backed me in a dispute with Melissa for the first time. He advised her to accept accountability for her behavior as what she did was unacceptable. Of course, Melissa did not respond particularly well. She began to cry, claiming that she is always the one blamed while I am treated like the golden kid and that no one else ever supports her. Diane took great offense at my dad for not standing up for Melissa. She charged him with deserting their family and enabling me to turn him against them. With Melissa screaming in the background, the whole event descended into a protracted quarrel between my dad and Diane. It was a horrible catastrophe. All I wanted was everyone to go. They finally did. Melissa was still sobbing and Diane glared at me like I was the devil when my dad advised Melissa and Diane to head home and cool off. I was utterly exhausted. All I wanted was a decent anniversary party and business news, and suddenly this catastrophe had my family in disarray. Right now I'm at a complete loss. Hence I could really appreciate some guidance on how to handle this. Update 2. Good Reddit, I'm back offering more updates. Since that turbulent day, things have become convoluted, and I am still trying to make sense of it all. Word got around among our relatives and friends once the dust settled from the major disclosure on James spiking Melissa's drink. Though you know how these things go, people talk, I did not want it. Concerned about the situation, business associates and a few close friends contacted me. While some were encouraging, others seemed concerned about how this mistake may damage my company's standing. Given something as serious as accusations of spiking cocktails and lying about a pregnancy, I suppose that makes sense. No one wants to be connected with scandal. Though within I was slightly panicking, I told them everything was under control. Having this drama leak into my work life is the last thing I need. Regarding Melissa, her standing has suffered greatly. Those who attended the party, especially those who personally heard her announcement, are now challenging all she says. She has been avoiding social media, which is unusual for her. Some of her shared acquaintances have also distanced themselves. She enjoys the attention normally, but right now it seems as though she is hiding. Regarding family dynamics, things have become even more convoluted. James split from Melissa soon after everything became clear. Unable to handle the aftermath, he was naturally enraged over being controlled. Naturally, Melissa blames me for the breakup. She says they would still be together if I hadn't showed her the film. Classic Melissa, dodging accountability instead of assigning guilt. About the whole thing, my dad is truly conflicted. Though Melissa's behavior calls for a soft spot for him usually, this time he seems to be questioning it. I never would have imagined him saying that, but he has been discussing severing relations with her. It has severely damaged his relationship with Diane, who is still protecting Melissa. Things between them are, at least, tense, and I worry it may cause further major problems in their marriage. Given all that has transpired, I have been giving legal action against James great thought. Though it was under Plan B, what he did, spiking Melissa's drink, was utterly out of line. Speaking with a lawyer, they advised me that things may get complicated even though they stated I have a case should I wish to file charges. Given the whole affair has gone public, James might countersue for slander, particularly now. It's a lot to consider and I'm not sure if the extra stress is worth it. Melissa has been flitting about threats of a lawsuit against me for emotional suffering at the same time. She is claiming great mental trauma from my showing of the CCTV footage and revealing of her lies. Although it's ridiculous, the attorney encouraged me to treat it seriously should she choose to act. If it comes to a countersuit, we are looking at possibilities. But to be honest, the thought of attending court over this makes me ill. I simply want this dream to fade. To aggravate things, Diane is entirely on Melissa's side. Just ridiculous is her insistence on my dad acting legally against me. Though it's driving a gulf between him and Diane, my dad is happily not entertained by that thought. More frequently staying at our house, he is trying to avoid the stress at home. Though I hate to see him trapped in the middle, I have no idea how to correct it. I am currently attempting to concentrate on safeguarding my company and myself. Just in case things get more intense, I have added more security devices at home and at the office. I have also begun recording everything, every contact, every threat. So I have evidence should this go before court. Although it seems overkill, I would much prefer to be safe than regret. Edit 1. To try to save what remains of our family, my dad advised family therapy. He is eager to mend things with Diane and, I believe, still harboring hope that we may somehow mend our connection with Melissa. Though I realized how much the concept meant to him, I wasn't excited about it. I consented nevertheless. Diane grudgingly consented as well, although Melissa first flatly objected. She finally agreed to one session, simply to hear everyone out, after some persuasion though. The session turned out clearly as a fiasco. The therapist tried to mediate, but Melissa was antagonistic from the time we arrived. She spent much of the time portraying the victim, blaming me for destroying her life and asserting that I had always been envious of her. She maintained that James and her would be happy and planning their future together if I hadn't intervened. It was all about how I had exposed her and about how unfair it was that she was the one suffering as a result. Diane was not improved either. She blamed me for boiling the pot and generating all this turmoil, shielding Melissa at every turn. She even had the gall to advise me to have handled things privately and kept silent about the CCTV evidence to spare Melissa from humiliation. What I was hearing astounded me. I was supposed to simply let Melissa carry on with her lies and manipulation to keep the peace. Although my dad attempted to be impartial, he once lost his cool. Melissa was advised by him to own her behavior and cease attributing her troubles to others. Diane interpreted that as a betrayal, and the two of them descended into a shouting war. The therapist sought control, but it was too late. Melissa bolted, screaming that she was done with all of us, and Diane trailed her out. My dad was seated there looking disappointed at the end of the session. He said he didn't know what else to do and that perhaps it was time to realize things wouldn't get better. He apologized to me. Seeing him so distraught broke my heart and made me understand that this could be beyond save. For Melissa, things have only gotten worse following the catastrophic therapy session. She lost her job, according to what I heard via common friends. She seems to have had unpredictable behavior, missing work or arriving late. At last her manager had enough and let her leave. Though I'm not surprised, it is nevertheless depressing to see her descend this way. She has also been disseminating online rumors about me. She has been tweeting accusing me of ruining her life and turning our family against her. She even made ludicrous hints suggesting I edited the footage to make James seem bad. Although most people who know the whole truth are not purchasing it, some seem to be devouring it. It hurts, and it makes me wonder whether I should have kept things private even though I know that would have only served to hasten the unavoidable. My dad is bordering on insane with concern. Melissa has not responded when he tried getting in touch. Naturally upset with him for not supporting Melissa more, Diane blames him for driving her away. Their marriage might not survive this. Things between them are precariously hanging. Diane's hard set against my dad's even talking about stopping Melissa's financial support, expecting it will drive her to get her life together. I am at the very end of it. Though it's not that easy, I have thought about totally severing relations to Melissa. She is still family, and despite all, I find myself thinking about her always. I cannot, however, continue to let her pull everyone else down. I have begun researching legal choices to guard against the falsehoods she is disseminating online. Though my attorney is counseled to write a cease and desist letter, I am unsure. Though I can't allow her to keep lying about me, I also don't want to let things get much more escalated. Update 3. 6 months later. Hey Reddit. After everything fell apart 6 months ago, I at last have some excellent news to report. Following all the tension, turmoil, and emotional roller coasters, something wonderful happened. I discovered I'm pregnant. And it occurred organically, against all chances, not through IVF or any other procedure. Though Brian and I are over the moon, given everything that has transpired with Melissa, we have been careful about who we inform. We agreed to keep it under wraps until I reached into my second trimester. We at last had something to celebrate after years of heartache and disappointment, but concurrently we harbored an underlying anxiety about Melissa's reaction should she find out. Since the whole episode with James, she has been out of control. The last thing we wanted was for her to find a means of ruining this for us too. We have kept the pregnancy under wraps, only informing a small number of close friends and intimate relatives. When we told Dad, he was overjoyed and has been quite helpful. Diane, on the other hand, responded somewhat inconsistently. She seemed a little aloof as well as pleased for us. She still finds it difficult to deal with everything that transpired with Melissa, so it is influencing her attitude to my news. Though there is conflict, Brian and I are emphasizing the good. We have begun organizing the nursery and creating baby arrival plans. At last, being in this place after all we have gone through relieves us. Though I'm trying to be hopeful, I can't say the anxiety of anything going wrong has totally vanished. We knew it would be difficult as we neared the time to tell the rest of the family about the pregnancy. We made a conscious choice not to invite Melissa, even though we wanted to arrange a small private party with just our closest family members, my dad, Diane, Peter, and some friends. We felt leaving her out of it was safer and less taxing after all that had transpired. The day of the conference arrived and I felt both anxious and thrilled. After everyone had finished our modest supper, Brian and I got up to make our announcement. As I told everyone the news, my heart was pounding, but the response was just what we could have asked for. Peter was delighted at the prospect of being an uncle, while my dad was ecstatic and leaped to hug us both. Though I could see she was holding back a little, even Diane grinned and congratulated us despite her recent distancing. Diane inquired whether we had told Melissa, and there was a period of awkwardness following the initial enthusiasm. Everyone in the room was clearly tense waiting for my response. We hadn't told her yet, I said, and with everything that has transpired, we weren't sure how to approach it. Diane appeared torn while my dad nodded in comprehension. She pulled back, most likely thinking it wasn't the proper time, even though I wanted her to offer Melissa over. With everyone toasting to the new family addition, we ended the evening on a positive note. It seemed like a turning point, as though perhaps we were at last past all the drama and suffering. The news got out the following day. Although we hadn't yet put anything on social media, in our family word of mouth travels quickly. Not long after, I began receiving texts from friends and relatives all wishing well. I knew it was just a matter of time before Melissa found out, even as I was savoring the optimism and trying to keep focused on the happiness of the moment. Later on that evening, sure enough, my dad called. He seemed tense and mentioned Melissa had learned about the pregnancy through common connections. She was enraged, he said, outraged that we hadn't informed her straight and that she had to learn through someone else. He cautioned me that she might show up at our place. He was right. Melissa showed up at our house that very night, exactly as my dad had cautioned. As Brian and I were relaxing from the day and savoring a quiet moment together, we heard pounding on the front door. I recognized it even before I unlocked the door. Melissa looked angry, almost unhinged as I let her in. She launched her tirade without wasting any time. She stated it was obvious I was trying to eradicate her from the family and accused me of purposefully keeping her off the announcement. She continued on about how unjust it was, how she had gone through so much, and how I was rubbing my pregnancy in her face. She wasn't having any of it when I attempted to remain cool and explain that we had kept the pregnancy under wraps for a purpose and that we were going to inform her once we were ready. She persisted in saying that I had done this to pay her back off for what James had done. Sadly, she was essentially rewriting history to present herself as the victim, therefore painting a picture of nothing new. The exchange descended rapidly into a yelling match. As the baby's aunt, she insisted she had a right to be involved and asked to be a part of her life. But considering all that has happened, Brian and I had already decided to create some strict limits. We explained to her that although we wouldn't cut her off entirely, we wanted time and space to concentrate on our new family free from continual upheaval. She finally lost it entirely at that. Melissa began yelling that we were isolating her, that we were attempting to take away the only family she had left, and that she would make our lives terrible if we allowed her to participate. Brian intervened, reminding her she should go and that should she keep threatening us, we would discuss obtaining a restraining order. She hurled herself and slammed the door behind her. Having to threaten legal action against my own stepsister merely to preserve the peace in my family astounded me. Melissa's reaction made Brian and I realize we had to make some difficult choices. We filled my dad in on what had transpired when we spoke. Though I could see he was very depressed by the whole situation, he was not surprised. Although he has always strived to keep the family together, he also acknowledged that this time things had gone too far. My dad totally approved of our choice to impose limits on Melissa. He even advised us to think about temporarily cutting off our interaction with her until she receives the care she obviously requires. Diane, though, told a different tale. She contacted me, obviously disturbed when she learned what had transpired. Saying Melissa was only going through a difficult period and that cutting her off would only make things worse, she begged me to rethink. Diane didn't seem to get my explanation, that we were merely establishing limits for our own sanity rather than cutting her off entirely. She insisted that families should stick together no matter what, but I believe she is in denial about the harm Melissa's behavior has caused. Ultimately, Brian and I agreed to carry out our strategy. Melissa is only involved in our life when absolutely required. We are keeping minimum touch with her. At our house, we have also added more security devices in case she attempts another wild pull-off. Though I wanted things to be, I have to give my expanding family's safety and well-being top priority. Regarding my dad and Diane, their relationship is now considerably more tense. My dad has been spending more time away from home, lodging with friends or visiting our house. Diane is still trying to keep everything together, but I can tell the tension is wearing her down as well. Though I'm not sure what will happen with them, I hope they can sort things out without totally separating themselves. Right now, I'm mostly concentrating on my pregnancy and getting ready for our baby to arrive. Though it's difficult when it feels like everything is precariously balanced, I'm trying to remain upbeat and keep the drama at a distance. I simply want to savor this period without thinking about the next family catastrophe just waiting around. Update 4. 1 year later. Hey Reddit. It's been a year since my previous update, and I'm glad life has turned around much needed. Few months back, Brian and I welcomed a healthy baby daughter into the world. Emily is absolutely flawless, we called her. Given all the tension I had during my pregnancy, it was great relief when the birth went well and Emily and I were both healthy. Brian has been a really outstanding parent. He is hands-on with everything from late-night feeds to diaper changes and utterly smitten with Emily. It has deepened our relationship even more, and I would most want to have him at my side. About the rest of the family, things have been challenging but under control. With the continuous drama involving Melissa and Diane, my dad has been a loving grandpa visiting our house practically daily to see Emily. Diane has been trying to be more involved, to her credit. She's been trying to be a good grandma, and I'm trying to meet her halfway to help to keep the peace even if there is still some friction between us. Turning to Melissa's issue. Following the conflict a year ago, we stayed away as scheduled. Melissa first found it difficult. She kept snapping out on social media and made a few more attempts to get up unannounced. But some months ago something changed. Unbelievably, Diane persuaded Melissa to begin treatment. Though I had low expectations from it, Melissa seems to be at last making some development. My dad claims Melissa has been routinely attending treatment and has even begun to admit some of her prior actions. She contacted me a few weeks ago to really apologize rather than to assign blame or accusations. Though it was a brief note, it seemed honest. She said she was working on herself and realized she had been acting out of envy and hurt. She stated she hoped we might have a relationship eventually, even if it would take time, not asking for forgiveness. Though I was careful to reply, finally I responded briefly thanking her for getting in touch. I told her I'm willing to restore our connection, but it would have to be slow and under my terms. She has thus so far shown respect, more than I would have expected. Melissa seems to be doing well generally and also started a new career. She's not returning to her former self, but she is displaying maturity that I really never would have expected. Though still on guard, I am gently hopeful. Though I'm not ready to let her back into my life completely and trust won't be established overnight, I'm hoping this could be the beginning of something wonderful. I suppose that is it. I appreciate all of your support and counsel throughout the past year. Though it's been an unusual road, I'm glad to have somewhere to share it all. If something noteworthy occurs, I will keep you informed. But for now I'm simply looking forward to savoring life with my small family and seeing where the future leads us.